across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. Yes, welcome to the home of common sense. Thank you to Julia Hartley-Brewer. She's back tomorrow right here on Talk. Looking forward to that coming up this afternoon. Chancellor Rachel Reeves has stated that energy bill relief will likely be restricted to those on benefits, calling universal support irresponsible, and she says unaffordable. Well, she would say that, wouldn't she? Once again, it means that those earning will have to put up the cash. Is this government the enemy of working people? Your thoughts on that? Also this afternoon, new government guidance is set to advise English councils on improving safety. This follows a survey where nearly 90% of women reported feeling unsafe walking alone at night. I should just add, it's not just women as well. There's a lot of routes I think even blokes don't want to walk on. The advice, of course, will emphasise effective street lighting and the creation of CCTV secured walking paths parallel to busy roads. So the whole kit and caboodle to make things nice and safe. Will it work? And the government is launching NHS Online, a virtual hospital where specialist consultants can remotely video call millions of patients for consultations and treatment. I thought they were already doing that, aren't they? Details to come. Everything you need to know, all the breaking news right here on Talk. Now, a mugging has taken place. The working classes, and when I say working classes, I'm talking about whether it's middle or working class, people who work. The working classes have been robbed yet again. It's the most common show of a chancellor's hand. You need some money? Where are you going to get it from? Those who have no money or those who do? It's an economic no-brainer for the Treasury. Here's Rachel Reeves.
I can confirm to the House that contingency planning is taking place for every eventuality so that we can keep costs down for everyone and provide support for those who need it most.
Right, OK, those that need it most. So we refer to these two groups as in middle and working class people, if you like. I mean, they do blur those lines a little bit as working classes, OK? Diligent Brits, all of whom have a background in going to work. They pay their taxes, they fix their boiler, they skip holidays, quietly drown in the cost of living while the state takes their money and hands it over to those who've never contributed a penny. Britain's working classes are not wealthy. They're simply just too productive to be left alone by the government. They earn too much to claim a benefit. They're too broke for private schools, too squeezed to save, yet somehow they are the ones, as ever, footing the bill. Generation after generation, governments of all stripes have done the same thing. They've built a system that punishes ambition and rewards dependency. Not compassion, not fairness, just votes that you buy with other people's money. It's interesting this, because I know this predates Rachel Reeves, but it was interesting what Kemi Badenoch said today at PMQs.
He is planning another giveaway to people on welfare. Yet again, he's taking money from those who do work to give to those who don't. First, we had the budget for Benefit Street. Now it's the bailout for Benefit Street. Doesn't this just prove that they've given up being the Labour Party and they're now just the welfare party?
Is this government the enemy of working people? 0344 499 1000. We know about energy, but households could face a jump in food prices. Again, we are told, due to the Iran war, households facing food inflation above 8% within months if disruption by the war persists. Grocery industry experts have said this could get tricky. They said the conflict in the Middle East could result in food inflation more than doubling by the summer. So we know that Rachel Reeves is going to limit an energy bill bailout to people on benefits after warning that giving support to every household because of the Iran war would be irresponsible and unaffordable. She had a swipe at the Tories, who did this before with that £40 billion package of support after the invasion of Ukraine. She said it helped too many of the wealthiest households. Look, listen, the working people of this country are having a tough old time. The working people of this country are struggling. The working people of this country are the backbone of this country. Just look at your outgoings. Think of it: mortgage or rent, feeding your family, filling up your car, paying your council tax. The list is absolutely endless. We are being mugged. We now live, and you must have thought about this as well, in a kind of perpetual world of the auto price hike. Commodities or services that just go up along with everything else, whether they actually need to or not. We've got used to being mugged. We've developed Stockholm syndrome with the finances. So every company is taking a piece of your pie. 0344 499 1000. Is this the government? Is this government the enemy of working people? Your thoughts on that, and just give us an overview of how tough it is out there for you, because every single group, even if you earn well, it takes you a little longer to see it trickle down when you're doing well in terms of your monthly wage. But then you notice it, you look and you go, oh, hang on a second, there ain't anything left. There used to be some left, there's none left anymore. Your thoughts on all of this, 0344 499 1000. Chloe Dobbs is with us, the political commentator. To take a look at the big stories of the day. Afternoon to you, Chloe.
Afternoon, Ian.
Lots to talk about here, of course, particularly that issue of working people who will fund an energy bailout for people who are not working. I mean, it's as simple as that. Let's have a listen again, a reminder of what Chancellor Rachel Reeves has been saying.
I can confirm to the House that contingency planning is taking place for every eventuality, so that we can keep costs down for everyone and provide support for those who need it most.
I mean, providing support, this is always delivered by chancellors as if she is kind of stumbled across some money somewhere.
The magic money tree.
The magic money tree is going to give away, and just to the people that, but without even mentioning that the money only comes from the people that are working in order to facilitate the people who are not working. Now, nobody has a grumble about helping people who need the help, whether it's disabilities or whatever other issue. The question is the numbers game, isn't it? How many people are in that position? And it always falls to working people.
Yeah, exactly. And people are fed up of, you know, feeling like they're being taken for mugs by the government. And, you know, don't be surprised if you keep on taxing working more and then paying people who don't work more, that fewer people are going to work, which the stats are now very clearly showing. And look, of course, there are households that are going to struggle if energy prices go up. And I sympathise with the Chancellor and the Treasury to a degree in that what's going on in Iran is not their fault. But there are better solutions to this problem. How about, as Kemi Badenoch has clearly pointed out at PMQ today, and everyone else is screaming through the rooftop saying the same thing, how about we start giving out new licences in the North Sea? And I mean, Ed Miliband will say, oh, well, that won't bring the prices down because the prices are set internationally, so there's no point. Yes, there is a point, because we can do, I mean, what countries like Norway, I think, are doing is, well, you can tax the stuff that you sell at that supposedly extortionate price. How about you use the tax revenue from the extra oil that you sell because you give new licences, and then you can use that tax to either put it into helping people with their energy costs, or use that to pay for your, you know, crazy green projects, rather than just taxing people to death over and over again.
I keep hearing this sort of Ed Miliband-esque North Sea kind of response that, no, it won't make anything cheaper. Hang on a sec. If you, I mean, this is kind of year 4 economics at school, okay? So you have nothing on the table, you find a big old oil well, you take out 68 trillion billion gallons of oil, but it's not going to make any benefit to anybody. Well, that's nonsense. Of course it will. You have more oil.
Yeah, of course. And
if you have no eggs and somebody gives you 5 million eggs, you've got more eggs, right?
Exactly. So, I mean, first of all, over the long run, that is adding more supply to the world's oil, which anyone who knows a basic supply and demand graph knows that that does bring prices down to some degree, even if they are set internationally. And as I said, even if the price stays exactly the same and it remains high, you can use the tax revenue from that, rather than taxing the middle classes and the working classes even more, to help people with their energy bills if that is what you feel is necessary. It's a no-brainer. But I mean, Ed Miliband, I mean, whenever he's asked on this, I mean, it's just completely illogical, everything that he says. So I mean, of course, now we're on to Iran, but when he's questioned about the impact of the war in Ukraine, where of course we saw petrol prices going up like crazy again, the logic that he comes out with is, oh, we need to stop drilling in the North Sea. We need to stop using fossil fuels and finding them ourselves so that we are less reliant on Putin's. And I'm just like, wait, hang on, if you find less of it in the North Sea yourself, then you are going to be more reliant on Putin. Yes. But he lives in this magical utopian universe where he thinks if we stop drilling in the North Sea, suddenly like that, we'll be able to get 100% of our energy from wind turbines and solar panels. Yeah, but that's, I mean, it's only about, what, 10% of our energy supply at the moment? How overnight are you going to be able to do that and say, no, Putin, we don't need anything from you anymore?
We've got some windmills.
He doesn't get it. He lives in a perfect utopia with no pragmatism or logic whatsoever.
I mean, quite aside from the kind of the seismic challenge of converting an entire country to wind and sun, which would take probably decades. You've then got...
It's very windy today, actually.
It's quite
so
a windy day today, so
energy.
if you've got a windmill in your back garden, big thumbs up all
But that actually is probably going to cost the taxpayer, because I bet what will happen today is they'll have to tell everybody, we need to pay you to turn the wind turbines off.
Turn it off.
It's too windy and the national grid is overwhelmed.
It's made all the dials go nuts, so we don't know what to do about it. So there's that, and then you've got to kind of, you still got to make this stuff work, so you need, a fossil fuel component to making it work. But the idea that this can happen almost overnight.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a madness. The Chinese aren't doing this. The Chinese, they've got loads of solar panels and windmills, but they're simultaneously saying we've also got a lot of natural resources. Yeah. We'll keep using the natural resources. When they run out, by that stage, we'll have developed sufficiently into other forms of energy. That's just logic, right?
Yeah, and also Rachel Reeves is at the moment trying to have a big AI push and make that a big focus in our economy. Well, sorry, but if you want to have that, then you're going to need a lot of cheap energy for these energy-draining data centres that you're going to need for the AI industry. And I think there are although there are a lot of backbenchers and Labour Party members that love Ed Miliband, I think the people in the cabinet who are deciding where money goes are getting really, really frustrated because his projects are really restraining the rest of them and restraining the economy.
Yeah. Spot on. And of course, it's not just energy, it is all the other elements of cost of living as well. I mentioned this phrase, I quite like this phrase now actually. We live in a world of the auto price hike, which is where stuff just goes up, even if it doesn't need, even if it's not a service or a commodity that is affected directly or indirectly by Iran or Ukraine or something. There is just that thing that companies do. They go, well, everyone expects the price to go up, so we might as well put it up. Nothing goes down. Nobody ever came into work and said, hey, guess what? You know that pizza that used to be a tenner, it's now £3. That never happened. Nobody ever had that moment of going to buy a car and go, wow, it was $7,000 2 months ago. I got it for $4.5. It doesn't happen. Everything's just going up.
No, I don't think we're going to be seeing a deflation anytime soon. But a little bit of disinflation would be lovely.
A balance would be good, wouldn't it? A recalibration where you go, hang on, we have some common sense in it.
I mean, you say people expect it, but it doesn't reduce the fact that it stings every single time. Every time you go in the supermarket, it's gone, oh, that's gone up by 30p today. It will go up by another 30p tomorrow. I mean, food inflation is crazy. Potentially going to go up by 8%, to 8% over the next few months if the war in Iran persists. And food inflation is the thing that it hurts the poorest households the most. And when we've had high inflation, for example, under Rishi Sunak, we had significant periods where food inflation was in double digits, much higher than the main headline rate, and that really does hurt people.
Indeed. And weekly food bills as well. I mean, people look at that. Once in a while, but can I just ask you this, because this is a little annoyance of mine. When you go to the supermarket, firstly, you get offered a receipt. Did you want a receipt or not, in the self-service bit? Do you leave that receipt like rubbish in the carrier bag after you've emptied the carrier bag?
No,
so that like 2 months later, there's 7 receipts in there?
No, but you know what I saw on Instagram is I saw these cheeky youngsters who say they've got an infinite money glitch now, where what they do is they'll take those receipts that people leave in the baskets. And then they'll go into the shop, they'll look at the items, they'll go take the items off the shelf that are on the receipt, and then go to the customer service desk and say, I want to return these items, can you give me the money back? And then they get free money.
Wow.
For the items that they never bought in the first place
never bought
by
them in the first
stealing
place.
receipts. So keep your receipts, because else some kids may go getting free money as a consequence.
I tell you what happened to me the other day. This was a Sunday. I've made this mistake before of going in just before the supermarket closes, so you don't always get a good offer there. I went to buy some beef, just some beef for a roast, okay? So in I trot, there's one piece of it. As I'm walking towards the beef section, there's just one bit of beef. No, it wasn't that. It's so like the big race-off between you and someone else. Who's going to get there first? No, and it was this fairly much bigger than I needed, and I haven't bought beef for a long time, and it was, I don't know if I told you this, Finn, it was like 34 quid.
What?
For this bit of beef.
Not worth it.
When I got home, I googled how much it is to buy a cow. Do you know you can get a cow in Bromley for about 60 quid?
It's quite hard to maintain them and look after them, though.
I don't want to look after them. I just want to eat it.
You're just going to put it in the garden?
Yeah.
Okay.
And cull the beast.
You're going to kill it yourself?
So I can get a tiny bit of a cow for £34.
Would you be able to eat a cow after murdering it yourself?
Or a whole cow? Well, it depends how hard you punch it, doesn't it? I mean, is that not the method? I don't know.
I couldn't, see the animal cry and scream in front of me.
Yeah, no, I get all of that. But
I'm not sure about this money-saving strategy.
But how did we... It's not... Yeah, I'm not going to get on the Martin Lewis show anytime soon. But there is the cost of that. And so I didn't get it because it was too big apart from anything else. It would have been an absolute... When I bumped into somebody I hadn't seen for a while, I said to her, do you know what? I felt like somebody from the 1950s going, guess what? You wouldn't believe the price of beef. And it was just off the scale, and she went, yeah, have you tried buying lamb lately? I thought, we're having a conversation that used to happen just after the war, when people were talking about the cost of things. Now, I know there's a couple of wars going on which feeds into some of this, but everything has become, I mean, it's off the scale. The stuff, washing powder.
Honestly, the thing that probably panics me and stresses me out the most is money being spent on food. I feel like every time I go to the shop, even if I try to be careful about what I buy, I go and I scan the items at the end and I'm like, oh my God, like I've just got food for the day, and then there's another 30 quid gone, and I'm like, I'm not even bulk cooking here. This is just stuff I've picked up for today. This isn't sustainable. How can I go on like this?
Yeah, you never swipe it all through and it comes to like £4.16, does it? It's always it always starts with at least a 2, and usually a 3, and that's just when you've popped in. That's not even your weekly shop, you know.
Exactly.
It is absolutely nuts. A lot of people telling me on social media, you cannot buy a cow for 68 quid. It was a little bit of creative licence, all right? It would have just been ridiculous if I said there were £10,000. Finn's already looked it up, haven't you, Finn? How much is a cow, mate?
Have you seen the story of
reckons a cow's over
Have you seen on the lighter note? Have you seen the lovely story of the dogs in China that were kidnapped from their owners by a butcher to sell them at a dog meat market?
And they escaped.
And they escaped, and amazingly walked together in a pack along the road for like 2 days straight, and managed to somehow navigate their way back home to their owners, which is crazy how on earth they knew.
I did see something. I didn't know it was in China.
It was beautiful.
I thought it was in Surrey.
A little corgi led the way, and there was one dog, a German Shepherd, that was injured, and they formed a circle around the German Shepherd and they paraded together.
But that was Secret Life of Pets 3.
How on earth they knew? Like, I know how cats are good at getting home because they're always out and about and they know. But a dog just in the middle of a motorway escaping, how on earth would they know their way back home? But these dogs, they somehow did. I mean, it's a miracle.
Got like a crazy little radar.
Yeah, someone's already made like an awesome AI movie of it.
Of course they have.
Yeah.
Yeah, but their social credit has gone down the pan now. They escaped. So.
Yeah.
0344 499 1000. Finn just buzzed in my ear. Went, we need to break. I don't know what's happened. Something's gone on. Clearly, we're going to find out next on Talk.
crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in Crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Lots to get on with here. Chloe's still with us. What about this story? Following a survey where nearly 90% of women reported feeling unsafe walking at night, new street safety guidance, this is for English councils, is being prepared. Plans will focus on two key areas: well-designed street lighting and CCTV monitored walking routes alongside busy roads. Let's have a listen to Jess Phillips, who's the Minister for Safeguarding and Violence Against Women and Girls.
1 in every 8 women was a victim of domestic abuse, stalking or sexual assault. Every day, 200 rapes are reported to the police, and many go unreported. Behind every one of these figures is a woman or girl whose life has been shattered. And behind every crime lies a perpetrator who all too often gets away scot-free.
All of that is horrendous to hear those stats. It should be said that more men will be the victims of violence, and being scared on the streets is not... I can see the very specific differences, obviously.
Yes.
But there's a lot of blokes that share that fear when you're walking home late at night.
Yeah, I think both women and men will get into trouble when walking home, but I do think that women probably on the whole feel more scared, just in that they don't feel like they could defend themselves if anything happens.
Exactly
of course,
right.
if anyone has someone starts throwing a punch or pulls a knife out, they're going to be scared in that moment. But I think a lot of men, not all men, but a lot of men, you know, especially if they've done a bit of boxing or something, or they go to the gym a lot, they'll feel like they've got a better chance of defending themselves if something goes wrong. And so I think women feel particularly scared. But I mean, the kind of measures that are being suggested here are, I think, things that would help everybody. I mean, I think it's about half of councils, they turn a lot of their street lighting off in order to save on the energy bills, but consequently it means that a lot of people feel unsafe. But I mean, it's more than just put more lights on and have more CCTV. There actually needs to be better policing, more stop and search, the obvious thing, to make sure people don't have knives on them. I mean, the scariest thing is, you know, not the prospect of someone throwing a punch in the middle of the night, but pulling out a knife on you where you feel completely helpless and there's nobody around to help you. But of course, that's something that many police forces have avoided on the basis that they're worried it makes them look racist, which we've definitely seen in London.
Yeah, we certainly have. But it is, I mean, you know, for anybody, if, like, every now and again I'll take the dog for a late night, a sort of 10 o'clock walk. And think, oh, crikey, I should have gone out a couple of hours ago. I'll take the dog just round the block. And, you know, that's fraught with... Usually because foxes scare the life out of you because they jump out of a bush.
I was going to say the foxes scare me more than people.
I nearly ninjaed the life out of a fox quite recently that jumped out of a bush. This beast had no right to be there. Should have realised it's a human and a dog. What did it think it was going to do? But it nipped out for a little look. Obviously got a bit scared, nipped back in again, but not before I'd swallowed my own heart 3 times. Because it was pitch black. There was hardly any street lighting around. I mean, it's scary. So even if you're a bloke, and look at me, I'm a right fit sort. So, you know, if I'm worried, then anybody's going to be worried, right?
Yeah, exactly. Not sure what we can do about the foxes other than telling people not to leave their rubbish out. I had one. My dog looks quite like a fox because he's ginger, and so I think they think that he's one of them. And the other day I was holding my dog up in the air because this fox was jumping up at me trying to get to my dog.
Seriously?
That's
quite a story.
It was following me, and it wouldn't leave me alone. I kept shouting at it like, "Go away," and like stomping towards it, thinking it would leave me. But this was very bold, this one. But my dog was like growling, going nuts. So I was like, I know if this fox gets here, that there's going to be a fight break out. So I was holding my dog in the air and I was shouting at this fox, "Go away, leave me alone." And then this guy came past on a bicycle and I was like, "Can you cycle towards that fox to make it disappear?" And he just laughed at me, cycled off, just left me to perish.
So you're holding a Cocker Spaniel in the air? There's a fox
I'm like
biting at your
I'm
kneecaps.
like on the verge. I'm like on the verge of tears. I'm like, can you please? And he just laughed at me. Like, why is this woman being so hysterical?
He's not going to win a neighbourhood watch award this year,
no,
is he?
not a proper man.
I have to disagree. I don't believe the fox thought your Cocker Spaniel was another fox.
I don't know, but he's clearly interested.
I think the fox is
clearly interested.
It probably thought it was a dessert.
If I walk by myself, then I get far less bother from the foxes. It's if the dog
the foxes tend to leg it when they see humans, so they don't want, you know. Well,
sometimes they want to get food from you, or if they're injured, they come for help.
That's
Some of
very
them
true.
are quite bold, these London foxes.
Let's talk about London civil servants, or those that used to work at Downing Street, like Morgan McSweeney. He didn't have a fox encounter, but he had an encounter with a mugger, apparently, who nicked his mobile phone. Now, bearing in mind, if you are the former Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister, that mobile phone contains quite literally, possibly Donald Trump's phone number. Certainly Keir Starmer's phone number, the Home Secretary, everybody that's any significant name. This is a big deal. But apparently he rang 999 and went, had my phone nicked, can you help me? He told some people at work. From what we understand, the protocol when you work in that area and you have a phone stolen is a little bit more involved than, you know, ringing the office saying I've had my phone nicked. I mean, this is, you know, clearly got huge security implications.
I mean, first of all, I believe that his phone was nicked, in that this was reported, I think it was on the 20th of October, before there was a requirement for him to be sharing WhatsApp messages. And also, I kind of get that the police are saying, we haven't got time for this, in that that's what they say to everybody who gets their phone stolen, because it's already been sold in some dodgy vape shop to someone at this point. They're never going to get it back. They're never going to find the guy. But for me, what I do not believe is that none of his messages are backed up anywhere. I mean, we're talking about WhatsApp. I'm pretty sure WhatsApp messages are backed up in places. I mean, if I lose my phone, I just open my laptop and I can see my WhatsApp messages there, and surely they're in a cloud. And surely also, if you are, I mean, the Chief of Staff, you probably have people advising you about, you know, how to keep your phone secure, how to have things backed up, and because, as you say, it's a very serious job where the security of those messages is very important. So I do not believe his excuses that, oh, I can't show you, I conveniently can't show you my messages with Mandelson because, you know, just conveniently I can't possibly find the backup of any of these messages. That just sounds a bit fishy to me. The call
what's interesting is the call handler becomes one of only about 17 members of the public that have ever heard Morgan McSweeney speak, because he's never given, you can't find anything of Morgan McSweeney. But we can, because we're quite diligent here at Talk. We uncovered this.
After careful reflection, I have decided to resign from the government. The decision to appoint Peter Mandelson was wrong. He has damaged our party, our country and trust in politics itself. When asked, I advised the Prime Minister to make that appointment, and I take full responsibility for that advice.
Did you know he sounded like that?
He sounds just like him. I'm starting to think maybe he hasn't hit puberty yet. Because it sounded quite high-pitched, that voice.
He's only 11, so to be fair.
Clearly got the judgment of an 11-year-old, given they appointed Mandelson.
We ran away on a bit of an animal theme today.
Yes.
No apologies for that, because in the midst of such chaotic and sometimes disturbing headlines, it's quite nice to get a little bit of light in there. So we did the foxes, we did the cows, and we even touched on stray Chinese dogs as well. So between all of that,
topics.
Listen, Chloe, good to see you again. We will speak very soon. Chloe Dobbs with us here on Talk. Over to you, back to the real grit of the afternoon. Is this government the enemy of working people? What is it costing you on a weekly basis to feed your family, fill your car up and all the other bits and pieces? Have you cancelled the planned holiday for this year? Have you even had one for the last couple of years? 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, 25 to 2. So the BBC have now got a new Director General. It has been confirmed that former Google executive Matt Britton is now going to take the job of Director General, replacing Tim Davie, isn't it, who had to quit amidst the whole kind of panorama stuff and everything. It's obviously caused a little bit of a scene among some. But why have you got a bloke that's never worked in TV? Do you know what? Maybe it's a blinding idea. Firstly, take somebody from the commercial world, and not just any old commercial world. Talk about new media from Google, from that commercial world. Somebody who's been at the top of their game in that part of the commercial world. Then this could this be the saviour of the BBC? This man will have a completely different mindset to what has gone before. 0344 499 1000. So, middle class and working class families may have to fund an energy bailout for benefit recipients. Chancellor Rachel Reeves has ruled out a universal energy bill assistance while committing to supporting those who need it most. It's always a tricky one, this, because you're not going to get money from people who haven't got any money. I kind of get that, but simultaneously, working people are coughing up yet again. At the same time, UK food inflation could surge past 8% this summer if that Iran conflict continues, pushing the cost of living crisis even further into despair. Let's have a listen to Kemi Badenoch. She had this to say to Keir Starmer at PMQs just a couple of hours ago.
He is planning another giveaway to people on welfare. Yet again, he's taking money from those who do work to give to those who don't. First, we had the budget for Benefit Street. Now it's the bailout for Benefit Street. Doesn't this just prove that they've given up being the Labour Party and they're now just the welfare party?
Let's get a word with Nigel Evans, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, an MP, Conservative MP of much experience. How long were you there now, Nigel? I tend to forget how long you served on those benches.
I've still got the scars in, 32 years.
32 years. I mean, that's a long time. You've seen, the old phrase, you've seen them come and go, prime ministers, chancellors, all manner of people. I mean, there's it's a great to have that vantage point over such a long period of time. And of course, in that time, you would have lost count of how often a debate on welfare came up, because they come and they go, but nothing ever really seems to seismically change. Would that be fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've just done a little bit of ferreting this afternoon to find out, how bad it really is. And the real problem is that the people who are on long-term benefits, we call PIP, personal independence payments, it's just below 4 million people in the UK are on that benefit. And it's gone up 600,000 in the last 18 months. Now, Ian, you tell me, really? 600,000 in 18 months? I know people are sick of this government, but really? Does that make you eligible?
Is that even possible? 600,000 in less than
18 months?
Yeah.
So I think Kemi hit the nail on the head absolutely right when she said that we are now Benefit Britain. And I think the sickening thing for the vast majority of your viewers will be that they go out, they work, and they pay their taxes. And yet they're now seeing an increasing amount of those taxes paying for things like personal independence payments. And also, of course, I mean, if you lose your job, clearly you're going to be eligible for unemployment benefit, and that figure is going up as well. But the real problem for Rachel Reeves is that last month she revealed that she had to borrow £14 billion, of which 13.4 billion went on paying the interest that we're having to pay because of all the extra borrowing. This is totally unsustainable. And in the meanwhile, Middle Britain, or alarm clock Britain, as we've got to call them, are really suffering. And Rachel Reeves has already said, well, you can forget any help or assistance with the extra energy bills that you're going to be paying because not only of the Iran war, but clearly the zealotry of this government in wanting to ensure that we got more and more of our energy supplied by renewables, which are, clearly being subsidised.
Yeah. We're in this sort of bizarre cul-de-sac now, aren't we? It started off sort of with Ukraine, and then we've now got Iran. I mentioned earlier that there are quite a lot of services and products that do go up in price that actually aren't affected by either of those things, but clearly those that flog the stuff go, well, everyone's expecting it to go up, so we might as well put it up. It's in a perpetual price hike place, this country.
Yeah, and the inflation figure came out this morning, which said it was 3%, and that is really before all the petrol increases that people are seeing at the forecourt kicks in as well. So we're expecting the inflation rate to perhaps go to twice what the Bank of England wants it to go to, at the same time that we've also now being conditioned for 2 interest rate hikes this year as well. So Middle Britain, Alarm Clock Britain are going to be hammered yet again.
And when it comes to welfare reform, of course, we've seen it with Labour. Keir Starmer, did have a bit of a plan. In fact, it wasn't really to even reduce the actual welfare bill, just the rise in the extraordinary costs of it. That fell on deaf ears because, of course, Labour backbenchers discombobulated. Their heads did a 360, and they said, no, you can't do this. And, that's where Starmer is. He's completely scuppered by the left-wing component of his party, which will eventually eat him politically. We can see this coming down the tracks. But other governments, the Conservatives had it as well. Ian Duncan Smith had some really brave ideas. Some of it found its way into policy, but not all of it. It's a trick. Governments are scared of going there because I guess, look, we all, as taxpayers, Nigel, I think we're all quite proud that we have an assistance system in place to help those most in need. The question is, what is that criteria for being part of that? Who could help themselves that's not currently helping themselves? And it's all of that. And I wonder whether governments just go, do you know what, this is just way too much to try and work out who's who's not in need. Let's just, pay it out, because it's easier to do that than to start going back to the drawing board and finding a whole new system. Yeah,
there's no two ways that Keir Starmer's scared witless of his backbenchers. And don't forget, we've got the May elections, local elections coming up on May the 7th. And the Labour government are bracing themselves for losses all over the United Kingdom. They're defending 48% of the seats. So they are expecting a hammering. There's only one job that Keir Starmer is really concerned about, and that's his own. And so it's a lot easier for him not to pick on the issue that really we need to pick on. This is totally unsustainable. Ian, if you get in debt, you have not got the simple solution of taking out another credit card in order to pay off that debt. Yeah, you're just going to go into a spiral of further debt. I was reading about what one of the French mayors said the other day when he was referring to the French government subsidising idleness. And I started to think about it in British terms. And I thought, right, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a ton of people out there who do need support. They're unemployed, or they really are long-term ill, and they do need our help. But then there's another bunch. And as I say, it's gone up 600,000 in the last 18 months. You cannot tell me that 600,000 extra long-term sick people are eligible for these benefits, but apparently they are. And I thought, right, so what we've got ourselves into is a situation where we are subsidising idleness too much, and we are penalising graft. Yeah. Those people who do go out and do the jobs, pay their taxes, and they're hammered. They're absolutely hammered, and they've seen their taxes increase again and again and again. And if you happen to be an employer, of course, you've seen your employer's national insurance go up, as well as the national minimum wage. So entrepreneurs, those people who are trying to grow the economy, are being restrained and hammered for doing so. And yet we've got all these people who are on benefits, and it's a big question mark over that. And Ian, we've managed to go almost 10 minutes without mentioning the number of people who are coming into the United Kingdom illegally on a daily basis, and the British taxpayer is having to pick up that bill too. We were promised by this government that they would stop the boats, they were going to break the gangs. They've just not done so, and there's over 66,000 extra illegal immigrants have come in over the past 18 months. So you add all that together, and the whole thing is totally unsustainable. And Middle Britain, Alarm Clock Britain, have had enough.
Indeed, and you're absolutely right when you consider we're paying, £6 to £8 million a day on hotels, and then there's the other sort of associated costs that come with so many people coming into the country. That almost, we kind of gloss over it a bit now. It doesn't even get a mention, really. Even backbench opposition MPs aren't really raising it now because it's just a figure that's been there. It seems to grow all the time. It's massively expensive. The economics are unsustainable. And there we are on one hand with Rachel Reeves saying there's not enough money around to do X, Y, Z. On the other hand, paying £8 million a day to accommodate people who are not actually meant to be here.
No, these are phenomenal, eye-watering figures. As I said, it's not sustainable. And those people who are actually going out to work are now questioning why they're working so hard, paying taxes for what is a burgeoning welfare Britain. If you think about it, these figures are hard to people get their heads around. Yeah. But the welfare bill every year is now over 400 billion, and the interest charges on all the debt is well in excess now of 100 billion pounds every year. Wow. Something's got to break, something's got to give, and people have now had enough, and people are really questioning why it is that they're having to fork out so much money when they get up really early in the morning. They go out doing a job. In many cases, they don't particularly like the job they're doing, but they're doing it to put food on the table and to look after their families. And yet they see so many other families on Benefit Street getting money for doing absolutely nothing. As I said, they see it as subsidising idleness and penalising graft.
Indeed. Just a final question, Nigel. I know you're no longer an MP, but you are still once in a while down there at Westminster.
I was there today.
You're there today. So have you, by any chance, as you've stumbled around the streets, the old cobbled streets of London, seen a mobile phone? It's an iPhone that's gone missing. Used to belong to a guy called Morgan. He can't find it for love nor money, despite the fact it's apparently got one of the most sensitive trackers known to mankind in it. He doesn't know where it is, and we need to help Morgan find his little iPhone.
Yeah, this story's not going to go away, and it's a lot of people are, let's just say, sceptical about the fact that all of a sudden a phone which is going to be really useful as far as the messages that are on it is concerned to the police investigation. Sure. Not only does it go missing, but I've now read the transcript of the conversation that Morgan McSweeney had with the Met. And not once does he say, I work at number 10 Downing Street, I'm the Chief of Staff for the Prime Minister. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of sensitive stuff on that phone, a lot of sensitive phone numbers. If you just think about it for a second, you think that the first thing that he would have done would have gone to number 10 security to have ensured that they're going to do absolutely everything to try and recover that phone. Now, initially, it seems, Ian, because the police really were blindsided as to who he actually was, that they just gave him a crime number and that was that. Now, because of the police investigation that is going on into Peter Mandelson and the messages that are there, and we already know that there are certain messages that we aren't seeing because we don't want to interrupt the flow of the police investigation. I should rather hope now that the Metropolitan Police would be a little bit more interested as to where that phone has gone. And also the fact that I believe that he was using disappearing messages on WhatsApp and stuff like that. Really, that should not be happening when you're utilising a government phone. So I would rather hope now that the Metropolitan Police are going to go over that. I think it's really unusual, by the way, what the Met have already done by publishing the conversation that was taken that took place between Morgan McSweeney and the Met. I don't think that's ever happened ever before. So clearly, I think the emphasis is now going to go back onto Morgan McSweeney and the Met Police now really to do.
I think the old Bill thought, hang on, we're not copping the blame for this. Here's the transcript. So they've completely, I get what they're doing. Listen, Nigel, always great to have you on. Thank you, Nigel Evans, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, Conservative MP for 32 years. He's now enjoying some time out from the world of politics, but dips his toe into the waters from time to time to speak to us. 0344 499 1000. You can talk about the phone. Lots of messages on that as well. And is this government the enemy of working people? Reference the huge cost of living crisis, taxation through the roof, fuel, energy, the whole thing is becoming unsustainable. Our lines are open. This is Talk.
Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This from Margaret in Birmingham, who says, Morgan's mystery mobile, Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister. So why is this the first time it's come to light? And why didn't he have a tracker? The plot thickens. Send for Wagatha Christie. Apparently, it has got a tracker in it. And you'd like to assume that it's got the... as far as trackers go, it's not your average tag that you buy on Amazon. This is like, you know, proper high-end... Pretty sure the Secret Service people could find this thing, you know, Jack Bauer style. Margaret also says, as for food, fish and chips off the menu, too expensive. Oh, fish and chips is through the roof, isn't it, right now? Let's get a word on cost of living and the bailouts. Paul's in Newport. Paul, what have you got for us? Afternoon to you.
After you two, man. How are you doing?
I'm good as gold at this end, thank you. Yeah, fire away.
Good man, good man. I think it was, I can't remember if it was yourself, because I do listen to you every day. One of you said that the number of people taking benefits now exceeds the number of people paying taxes. It's something like 53% are now taking benefits, and so obviously less than that are paying taxes. Now that to me, that we've now tipped over the edge, okay? Because any party that says, okay, we're going to hit the benefits bill, they'll never get in.
Yeah.
Because the 53, most of those people, if not all of them, have the vote, right? So turkeys don't vote for Christmas. That's not what happens. So now that you've got the larger number taking out of the system than the number of people putting in, they are all going to vote for the party that says, we'll give you more benefits, we'll give you more. And if you look historically, that's how the Labour Party got in.
Indeed, it's always been a tricky card for the Conservatives. You know, vote for us, we'll give you less, because that is essentially what a centre-right party does. Not in a nasty way, but in a way, you know, you become self-reliant. We're here as a support system only, and that's it.
But what happened now that we've breached that number, that, you know, it's now 51-49 type stuff, or 53-47. The only way you can get out of it is to do something really, really radical, and I mean really, really radical. And I've mentioned this to you before, okay? So one day they might make me king. It's a slim chance, but they might just do it. To me, when I was a kiddie living at home, I used to say to my dad, "Oh, this, that," and Dad used to say, "When you're paying rent, you can have a say. Until then, just do as you're told."
Yeah.
Now, if for example, okay, if that's just how dads were in those days.
True.
If we accept that most governments spend nearly all of their time deciding where the tax revenue goes, okay, they might have to put up a law that says, okay, you can't do this, you know, you've got to pick your litter up or something. But 99.9% of their time is spent deciding where the money goes. Yep. Well, if you're a non-taxpayer, why should you get a vote then? Because you're getting a vote to do something with money you didn't put in. So if they changed it so that, okay, then to get the vote, you have to actually be a taxpayer, or you're retired, therefore you've paid.
Would you? I mean, some people might end up on a benefit for, you know, you might be on a disability benefit. That's a whole different ball game, a genuine disability issue. We understand that. You might have fallen on hard times. We accept that. Yeah. So would it have to be? You'd have to sort of set out some pretty strict criteria for this, wouldn't you? In that respect, Paul.
You would, but the point I make is that if we carry on as we are, there cannot be a change. Because turkeys don't vote for Christmas. If we carry on, unless we do something, and it has to be pretty radical, okay? Someone said there's 3,000 people a day signing on. Whoa, right.
I mean, we're at 600,000 people in the last 18 months are now on some kind of disability benefit. I mean, the figures are sort of off. They're kind of unrealistic by any measure, and that's not to be harsh on those that are in desperate need.
No.
But does anybody really believe that 600,000 people, I think slightly more than that actually, suddenly in a year and a half became disabled?
But the reason we get so vexed, I mean, here I am, so I'm halfway through another 10-hour day, okay?
Yep.
Because that's what we do in there, okay? The reason we get so vexed is because we're sort of saying, okay, you can't keep saying to the man that gets up in the morning or the woman that gets up in the morning, you're going to have even less because I've got to take some more to pay for those people over there who haven't put anything in. The reason we get so vexed is because we don't see anyone who produces a potential solution that we can grab hold of. I literally do not see the 7th Cavalry coming over the hill. I just don't see it.
No. Well, if you do see it, can you let me know, Paul? That would be really handy, and I'll vice versa as well. We'll let it be known here first. Thank you, Paul. I've got to move on just to get another voice in before the news. By the way, the 2 men arrested for the arson attack on the volunteer-led ambulances run by the Jewish community in Golders Green have been identified as British nationals. The police have released that information. I understand why they did it. In case, was this a foreign attack from somewhere? They are Brits, but I think there is still a missing part of the information that would perhaps assist where this is going. 47-year-old, 45-year-old men both remain in police custody as officers carry out their extensive searches. Carl is in Liverpool. What have you got for us, Carl? Afternoon to you.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Ian. You're all right?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Yeah, it's just with the Rachel Reeves coming out, obviously, people who are going to get the benefit of what she's going to give them, people on benefits and stuff. I work full time, like my wife. I can work up to 16 hours a day, sometimes 7 days a week, and we've just really now started to feel the pinch when we go shopping and stuff. It's you can feel it. It is bad, and the fuel's even worse.
Yeah.
But if we continue to pay our taxes like we do, and we're paying for people to not work and to get benefits along with the migrants, the hotels, etc., we're going to become poorer and poorer. So the more people that do work are going to then consider, well, maybe I should just go and benefit, and then adding to the problem, because it's not encouraging people to work.
Well, I wonder, I mean, serious point, Carl. I mean, there's a, I do talk to a lot of people, mates and, the odd character in the pub who are just sort of fed up with working because nothing's happening. They're working, they can't really afford very much. It's only just covering the bills. You do reach that stage where you might well think, if I can't beat this system, I might as well join the others.
Yeah, it is. I think a lot of people now, British people, we're kind of resenting all these people that are coming into the country and taking, and I think it does.
Why would you not? Why would you not resent that? It's a perfectly normal, instinctive reaction to, cost of living crisis, but we're also paying £8 million a day for people who've come to this country who shouldn't actually be here.
Yeah, but the longer this goes on, Ian, we will see people just falling out of work.
Yeah,
because they won't bother, and then that pride of working will go. Then the country will fall further down. People will just not be bothered, and then where do we go from there? We go further down, being in debt. People are just losing houses. We British people are then forced to do. It's just going to get.
Well, it's a spiral. It becomes a sort of almost self-fulfilling prophecy. Carl, listen, the news is upon us. Great call as ever. Thank you to Carl in Liverpool. Right now, the time 2 o'clock. Let's get the latest news headlines.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, good afternoon. Welcome back. It is the home of common sense. Loads together. We are, of course, responding to Rachel stating that energy bill relief will likely be restricted to benefit recipients, calling universal support irresponsible and unaffordable yet again, meaning that those earning will have to put up the cash. Is this government the enemy of working people? You are forced to genuinely ask that question. Look at the enormity of what is going on. Look at the cost of living crisis. By the day, ratcheting up prices, everything from the forecourt to the food basket. It's an expensive time to be a Brit. Thoughts on that? Also this afternoon, new government guidance is set to advise English Council about improving safety. It follows a survey where nearly 99% of women reported feeling unsafe walking alone at night. They're talking about more street lighting, more CCTV in crucial places. Details to come. And the government is launching NHS Online, a virtual hospital where specialist consultants can remotely video call millions of patients for consultations and treatment. Well, I guess that depends on your need as to whether that will work for you. I actually thought they were already doing that and have been for a couple of years now. Thoughts on that as well? Everything you need to know. We'll bring you all the breaking news right here on Talk. 0344 499 1000. This comes in from Jill, who says, my neighbour's daughter and her boyfriend live with them. They're in their mid-20s. They're both on disability benefits and don't work because of their social anxiety and can't apparently go out of doors to work. Although twice a year, for 4 weeks at a time, they go to Florida and to Disneyland. Now, I personally can't see anything more anxiety triggering than doing this, but apparently their social anxiety doesn't extend to getting on a plane and going to Disneyland for 8 weeks a year. It's interesting that, because anything's going to give you anxiety. You're absolutely right, Jill. It's a trip to Disneyland. Anxiety because of your bank balance, apart from anything else. But how many times can you seriously be enamoured and amused by Mickey flipping Mouse? I mean, you know, it's great. The fact, oh, look, it's Mickey Mouse. Pluto, Pluto, and all that stuff. It's great. And then after about 3 hours, you think, yep, Winnie the Pooh, that Alice girl from the Wonderland, they're all there. All the greats, I get it, and that's not the first time we hear those kind of stories. Thank you, Jill, for that. Let's go to that story that I mentioned there a second ago, of the survey that said that 90% of women reported feeling unsafe walking at night. New street guidance for English councils is now being prepared, and the plans will focus on two key areas: well-designed street lighting and CCTV monitored walking routes alongside busy roads. Let's have a listen to the Minister for Safeguarding Women and Girls, Jess Phillips.
1 in every 8 women was a victim of domestic abuse, stalking or sexual assault. Every day 200 rapes are reported to the police and many go unreported. Behind every one of these figures is a woman or girl whose life has been shattered. And behind every crime lies a perpetrator who all too often gets away scot-free.
All serious stuff, and nobody's going to disagree with those horrendous statistics. It should be said, and I say this, you know, just journalistic, not even balance, but just accuracy. Men are more likely to be the victim of a crime in those circumstances, but I understand the clear and distinct differences if you're a woman walking alone. Joanna Williams is with us, author of How Woke Won and writer over there at The Spectator. Joanna, nice to have you with us. Look, everybody wants everybody to be nice and safe. I think that's a given, isn't it?
Yes, I think it is. And I think having street lighting improved in areas, like you say, is beneficial to both men and women. And I think it's important that both men and women are safe as they go about their business of an evening. You know, to me, though, this should just be something that we are able to take for granted. I don't know about your viewers and listeners. I pay a lot of money. It feels like I pay a lot of money for my council tax each month.
Just gone up as well.
Absolutely. I think having good street lighting is one of the basic requirements that you should expect. It shouldn't take special orders from government to make this happen. However, what I would say is that, particularly in my area, I live in Canterbury, street lighting has been reduced in recent years, has either been turned off after certain times or been dimmed because of government directives that are centering net zero, that are telling us that because of the environment, to protect the environment, we must have, as far as I'm concerned, more dangerous streets. So it seems a bit hypocritical that the government is now saying, you know, more street lights, when previously it's been saying reduce the budget that's spent on electricity. I've got to say, I also take with a pinch of salt absolutely anything that Jess Phillips has to say on this issue, because she's had so little to say about the girls who have been victims of grooming gangs. Now, as far as I'm concerned, if you are a minister for safeguarding women and girls, and you do not have a very robust argument against that, and you're not prepared to be at the forefront of championing a national inquiry into this issue, why should I trust you on anything you say regarding the safety of women and girls?
Absolutely spot on. And again, it can't, we talk about this in so many different ways, Joanna, in terms of I guess, left-wing thinking. Somebody like Jess Phillips, I sort of got to know her a little bit a couple of years back when she was doing some stuff around here. But like so many of these politicians, you know this as well, perfectly reasonable one-to-one and, quite a nice person and all the probably great to have a pint with and all the rest of it. Or maybe not, I don't know, maybe that's pushing it a bit. But you take the point. But with the grooming gang thing, someone like Jess Phillips, her politics, her political guidance on these things, she can't go there. She just cannot go there. Every sinew of her political reasoning and DNA forbids her from going there. And that's the problem we have.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think this is not just about grooming gangs, but also about terrible reports of murder in some instances and rape of even very, very young girls, which have been carried out by migrants. So you've got grooming gangs on the one hand, migrant crime on the other, both of which have put women and girls at huge risk. And we've got a Minister for Safeguarding in Jess Phillips who cannot, for political reasons, exactly as you say, go there with either of those issues. Her fear of being accused of racism is such. And also, I think, let's be honest, her fear of upsetting the Muslim community in her constituency, whose votes she's relying upon to get re-elected, means that she is not prepared to touch the two, what I would think are the two really, really serious threats that are, I know there are other threats as well, but those are two of the biggest threats facing women and girls in this country. And that's why, all this talk about street lighting, to me, it's an important thing. Like I say, it's something we should be able to take for granted as council taxpayers, but it's kind of window dressing. It's not really getting to the heart of what is causing the problems that are putting women and girls at risk.
Yeah. Just to, the point on the street lighting, as we were discussing this, Joanna, I was just sitting here thinking, here we are as two grown, pretty sane, reasonably intelligent adults in the 21st century talking about what a good idea street lighting might be on some of our busiest roads. I mean, this is absolutely bonkers. The Victorians back in the day, when they were lighting sort of candles at the top of metal poles, were probably saying to each other, one day, fast forward 100 years, there'll be lights everywhere, it'll be functioning in a different way, we won't be, in this place. And here we are. We've steadily reduced it. Where I live, if you walk around the wrong corner, you literally walk into pitch blackness, pitch darkness. It's extraordinary. There are lamps there, but they're just turned off at certain times, like nighttime.
The times when you really need it. And
you don't need them in the day, do you? It's bizarre that, we're going to turn them off at night. Was the only time they're on.
No, absolutely. And we're talking about this in terms of safety for women and girls. But if it makes people think twice about stealing mobile phones, if it helps keeps the road safe for car drivers, for pedestrians, for so many reasons why street lighting is important, and safety of women and girls is up there. But this should just be a standard feature of living in a civilized, prosperous society.
On that point, Joanna, thank you. Lovely to have you on again. Joanna Williams, author of How Woke One, writer at The Spectator. It is bizarre. When it comes to personal safety, I think there are some reassuring stats, but nonetheless, in reality, not so reassuring. So somebody being, for example, the one that always springs to mind, a child being snatched on the street by a complete stranger. I think I'm right in saying that statistic, it happens so rarely, has never changed since records began decades ago. It doesn't, you feel it has because you read more about it. So every time there's some kind of attack, we read more about it. In terms of somebody getting mugged, I would suggest that probably has slightly increased, maybe more than slightly in some areas. But blokes, forever, you know, when you're driving sometimes late at night and you're going down a road and you see somebody, male or female, walking on their Todd at like 2 in the morning, you think, what are you doing, man? Why would you do that? I mean, it's possible you got absolutely smashed and couldn't get a cab home and one refused to take you. There is always that possibility. But there are people who just go, yeah, it's fine. I'm none of that old caper. Don't trust my fellow humans enough, maybe. Marion is in Norfolk on Safer Streets. Marion, what have you got for us? Afternoon to you.
Oh, hi. I think the cameras are be another waste of money for several reasons. If you can't afford to employ people to monitor these cameras 24/7, right? If you haven't got the staff or someone's sick. The second is police response. I'm here in Norfolk. We share resources from North Norfolk down to Cromer, Norwich. So for argument's sake, they could report a crime taking place on such and such a street in such and such a town, but, we can't get there for 45 minutes. The crime is over and done with. The person's wearing a mask, waste of money. Sorry, that's a bit negative, but that's what I think.
Well, I think you're certainly right about CCTV. I mean, it may well be helpful, you know, retrospectively to go, oh, look, we've sourced the CCTV. But what you really need is somebody monitoring those systems so that they can see, you know, where they're, you know, even before something happens, that there's a shady character just jumped in a bush clearly waiting for somebody. You'd like to think that would be, in the 21st century, how we would function. Maybe artificial intelligence will be the answer to all of that. Marion, thank you very much indeed. I know certainly, I'm thinking of smart motorways that are meant to, you know, they've been around for a long time. Massively controversial for obvious and sometimes fairly lethal reasons, but there are arguments about smart motorways that suggest, in theory, it's a banging idea, a smart motorway. It kind of, if everything comes together and it works correctly, it's brilliant, but it all has to come together. The other thing about smart motorways, which is never really raised enough, is that it also relies on drivers being part of the smart equation. So you can have the cameras, you can have the lane that gets crossed off, this lane's closed. That means when you see the little red X, you know, when you're driving down the motorway and then there's a little red X, and so you go, right, I'm not meant to be in that, so I'll stick to the other lanes, and then there's like 10,000 cars still in the red X bit. I don't know why, I don't know what element of, or where they are on the evolutionary scale to still think, I'll tell you what I'll do, I'll carry it says accident ahead and there's a big red X, I'll just keep doing 70 in that lane, shall I? So there's the problem with the smart motorway. Similarly with CCTV and the like, you know, you obviously need people to monitor this stuff for it to work fully in the sense of personal safety. Ian is down in London on women's safety. Ian, what have you got for us? Hi.
Hi, Ian. I did phone up AI, but AI was busy, so I thought to go to
That's all right. That's the future, though. Give it a couple of years.
Right. Can you tell me how many Jess Phillipses are there in the House of Commons?
126. No, I don't know.
No, because as far as I'm aware, there must be at least two, because one wants to have inquiries into grooming gangs, doesn't want to have inquiries into grooming gangs, and yet the other one wants to look after women's safety.
Yes.
And I just can't work this one out.
It's a very distressing, confusing and utterly bizarre picture when it comes to the thinking of Jess Phillips.
Yeah, because it just doesn't make sense. She sort of like goes on and on about like certain things like women being battered and everything else, and yet they don't want to do anything about the grooming gang.
She was very resistant to the groom gang. I mean, I think she has a sort of set-piece response if you write to her office that tries to tell a different story. But I don't think, you know, bearing in mind who she is, she's part of a cohort of Labour MPs who have understandably read out, I think Stella Creasy is another, but certainly has been very supportive, if not doing it herself, read out the names of women each year who've been killed due to domestic violence. And it's a very powerful, if you've ever seen that happen in the House of Commons, it's an sadly, and it's an extensive list. It's very powerful. I get that. You would think somebody who's from that part of kind of thinking and an area that she's championing would be absolutely right across it in all respects. Whatever form of child abuse or abuse of girls would be right across it.
But then you've hit the nail on the head with the word area. Which areas do Stella Creasy and Jess Phillip represent in the House of Commons? Which constituencies, and what is it made up of?
Yeah.
And both are absolutely scared of losing their seats. And that says it in a nutshell.
Well, in the absence of any other logic, I think we have to run with that, don't we? Because I can't think of any other reason why you would be so horrifically silent on an issue like grooming gangs.
Is it the word oblivious to it?
Yeah, but it's kind of a deliberate obliviousness. Yeah, they don't want to, because it's multi-layered and because it's got so many elements to it. They for some reason either can't be, as you rightly say, there's an electorate. They can't be bothered with it because it will cause potentially an electoral backlash to them at an election, or they just refuse. And this is maybe more dangerous. They just refuse to believe this. Nobody is saying that is what all child abuse looks like. In fact, we all know that isn't what most child abuse looks like. We know that it happens in all sorts of areas and all sorts of perpetrators. And each kind of case, as I'm sure you're ahead of me, Ian, is worth looking at. When it was happening in the Catholic Church, we looked at it. We didn't run away from the fact that it was in the Catholic Church. What made this more remarkable, and yes, most paedophiles are white, and I get that, but there's a disproportionality of these guys. What made this one remarkable was that institutions like law enforcement, social services, councils, teachers, clinicians ignored it. That's the difference.
Because I think also because when it's, let's say, the Catholic Church, for example, or let's say a widget society, it's like one person in an area.
Yeah. When
it comes to the other one, the grooming, it's not just one or two people involved. It can be anywhere up to 20 in a gang.
Yeah.
And it goes back to that. And it is. I just would love her to sort of like to meet her face to face and say, can you tell me what the difference is? Why are you pushing with one thing and you're not pushing with the other?
Good point, Ian. Thank you very much indeed. I mean, it is a contradiction that we'll ponder on probably forever on that one. Ian down in London, thank you to him. 0344 499 1000. Lots to talk about here. Let's get a voice note. This comes from Zoe.
With regard to women and men feeling safer, more particularly at night, but let's face it, it's during the day as well, isn't it? How about instead of messing around with street lamps, they're off because of the environment, then they want to put them back on again. How about, for a start, we just took the, what is it now, 60, 70,000 undocumented male fighting age men who come from predominantly third world, backward countries, which have a completely different attitude towards particularly women in the street. How about we just get them off the streets for a start? Never mind the bloody street lights.
Powerful stuff. Zoe, thank you very much indeed. Zoe in Staffordshire. If you want to leave a voice note, 0344 499 1000. Call us on the same number or message 87222. More coming from you next on Talk.
crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in Crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This in from Nigel. Afternoon, Ian. We are so skint as a country we can't even afford Vera Lynn to give us hope. Time for a reset has long passed, says Nigel. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what... Have we... talked to ourselves, you know, we often go back to this. When I was growing up, everybody seemed to be skint around us. Like, nobody really had any big, lavish holidays. Obviously, laptops and multi-channel TV didn't exist. Mobile phones didn't exist. So the criteria was obviously different. Expectation was different. Dependency culture was different. The sort of self-gratification vibe that weaves its way around the human race was very different. And that goes for everything. You know, once digital technology took hold, it changed the planet and the Western world. But there wasn't a talk of a cost of living crisis, even though the cost of living crisis was arguably greater then than it is now. But something, having said that, didn't seem quite as bad. Is that just because we didn't talk about it and people just got on with it? You know, we had a holiday once every 2 years, and that holiday was sitting in a caravan in Cleethorpes for like a week. Now, that wasn't entirely down to... This was like my mum's bizarre thinking about, oh, let's go to Cleethorpes because it's near the family up there. There was a bit of that going on. You know, mates would go off to Spain and, you know, do normal holiday stuff. There's always been an issue. We just didn't talk about it incessantly. Jacqueline is in Hampshire on fuel bailouts and goodness knows what else. Jacqueline, good afternoon to you.
Oh, good afternoon, Ian.
Hi.
Hello. Oh, gosh. Now I don't know what to say, really.
That's all right. You take your time. We've got all day.
Right. The welfare. We are in a terrible situation.
Yes.
And we can't afford it. Somebody's got to wake up and smell the roses.
Yeah.
The working class are being hammered. You're quite right.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to radically change things, and I mean really radically.
Sure.
We should be encouraging people from all different communities or wherever to come to this country and invest. And I mean by cutting taxes. You look at Dubai and Bulgaria, they are on a completely different vector about tax. Why are we not doing that? We need to actually encourage people to work here, to invest here. Then we'll get people working, and then we'll have actually more money coming into this country. And then the other thing is the welfare. It needs to be the case where you can work and you get more. If you're on welfare, it's half. It's just as simple. Then that way it encourages you to think, well, it's no good being on welfare because I'm getting a bum deal. But if I do 16 hours, I can still claim everything. Or if I give up work, I'm actually better off. This is wrong. This, you know, and no wonder the actual working classes are getting sick to death of being hammered.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many things that are really wrong. I mean, like, I agree with opening up the oil fields. I'm a green person. I love the planet and everything, but we should be the ones that are making the wind turbines. We should be the ones that are doing the solar panel, not China, not with their filthy energy. We should be doing it with our own energy.
Well, that's the thing. They keep talking about, part of Ed Miliband's thinking, Jacqueline, is that, this is great for British industry. And is there a big solar panel company in this country? Is there a big wind turbine company in this country? I mean, if there is, I'm sure they're fairly small. I think everything we've got in that world is imported from China.
Yeah, and this is where it needs to stop. We need to start, like you say, utilising our North Sea oil. I mean, that's what we've got, and we should be doing that. And then we can become greener. Yeah. And then we can say to people, oh, yeah, we are doing the right thing.
Correct.
Okay, bear with me.
Just use your noggin, do it sensibly. Yeah. Don't wreck what you've already got before you've invented its replacement.
Yeah, and I think if you cut the tax and encourage people to stay here and work here, I mean, people are just going, because what's the point of being here and paying masses of money for somebody who just sits? I mean, there are some very needy people, and I agree with that, but I've known a lot of people that they're claustrophobic, but they can still go out when they want to, or they've got such mental health issues, but again, they can still go, to on holiday and things like this. You can't have your cake and eat it. It's just not on.
It's just not on. Jacqueline, thank you. Lovely to talk as well. Jacqueline in Hampshire. Mark says Jess Phillips is a disgrace, standing up and coming out with all that guff while at the same time completely ignoring the rape gang's outrageous and dereliction of duty. Like I said before, she just can't go there. Mysterious one from Paula, who says, ladies, are you listening to Ian trying to defend Jess Phillips? And Finn, my producer, has just looked up like a meerkat at that moment, going, what? We all know why she betrayed us. It's very simple. The simplest explanation a man cannot understand. I have no idea what Paula could have been listening to. Unless, I mean, maybe it's something else that we're not aware of. We mentioned her absolute dereliction of duty that Mark just referred to when it came to grooming gangs. I mentioned very forcefully, I'd like to think, her political antennae just simply won't go there. She won't see it. She doesn't want to see. She cannot bring it. She can't bring herself to it's not just about Muslim, in this case, Muslim men, Pakistani Muslim men, on this particular area of offence. It's not just, it's anyone who's not white, okay? In Jess's world, she just can't go there. It's completely at odds with that sort of level of left-wing thinking, which has some real muscle in it. That's not a compliment, by the way, in terms of how it works. It's a kind of reflex, which is why you don't hear the likes of Owen Jones condemning areas where you'd think, well, in any other world, he'd condemn that. But why is he not condemning this? Because they can't go there. Christopher Hitchens used to speak about this brilliantly. That one of the problems with left-wing thinking, they don't get involved in the Middle East. They don't talk about medieval death cults that are lurking the place, abusing women and God knows what else. Because they just can't do it. Because in Janet and John terms, they think it makes them a mad racist. So, Paula, I beg to, I defer to something I should have mentioned and haven't mentioned, but I have no idea where the defence of Jess Phillips came in. Because, frankly, I think by any measure, we've absolutely annihilated the woman in the last 10 or 15 minutes. 0344 499 1000. Catherine, or Kate, in Warwickshire says, Jess Phillips doesn't know what a woman is. Singularly, the most inappropriate position is the one she holds. Secondly, roads that don't allow cars are also very dangerous for women. Taxis can no longer drop women off at their door. It's a good point. With loads of low-traffic neighbourhoods knocking around, there is a problem. Mike in Milton Keynes, once again, PMQs, Starmer, pathetic, pathetic, pathetic. It must be reformed as a matter of urgency. Absolutely, bang on. Thank you for those. More from you on the way. 0344 499 1000. Just gone 2:30. This is Talk.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Thank you to Andy, who says it's snowing in Sutton Coldfield, which is in the West Midlands for those who don't know. That is all, says Andy. It is cold enough to snow. It does feel, I know it's raining in a lot of places, but it's really cold outside today. And this is spring. Welcome to the UK when it comes to the weather. We are a right old mess, aren't we? It's the lack of consistency that does my nutting. You know how a couple of weeks ago when it was a bit sunny for about half an hour and people are walking around in flip-flops planning barbecues for the weekend? I mean, seriously, blokes walking into Tesco in their shorts and vests, picking up crates of beer for the barbie at the weekend. Mate, it's 5 degrees. You ain't having a barbecue. It's too bloody cold. But that's what we do. We kind of get, we get carried away with a bit of sunshine. 0344 499 1000. Now, lots to talk about here. A couple of stories we want to get into. Donald Trump proposing a 15-point peace plan, including a 1-month ceasefire bid to rapidly de-escalate the conflict with Iran. I can't quite keep up with what is happening here. Donald Trump is talking like, oh, well, it's pretty much over. We've won it. We've got a new regime coming in. And the Iranians are going, no, nothing's really changed. This ain't over. And we don't know what you're talking about. Who's right? Hamish de Bretton-Gordon, OBE, is former British Army colonel, often helps us out with these kind of stories. Hamish, good afternoon to you. It is, if you just used the Oval Office as your news feed, it is a bit confusing. Is that fair?
Hi, Ian. Hi, good afternoon. Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. What comes out of the Oval Office, the White House, is generally pretty ambiguous, and it changes on a regular basis. And when you're dealing with geostrategic politics, when you're dealing with war that we're seeing in the Middle East, the ambiguity confuses people. It doesn't clarify. Sometimes being ambiguous is good, particularly if if you're going to threaten somebody with a nuclear weapon.
Sure.
But in this particular case, it's just confusing people. I think the trouble is that Iran has really got Trump by the short and curlies, as it were. We're into almost week 4 of this, and most wars Trump tells us he'll finish in 24 hours. So we're in new ground now.
Yeah.
But we are where we are, and as you said, 15-point plan. Actually, when you read it, it seems pretty sensible, and it seems to be what America wanted with its 24 hours of attacking Iran in the first place. Now, unfortunately, the mullahs or what is the leadership in Iran at the moment are pouring a lot of cold water and scorn on it. So we'll see where it goes from there.
And they are kind of, I mean, considering their military capability is woeful in comparison to America and associated alliances, few and far between as they might be, but nonetheless, they seem to be holding all the cards at the moment.
Well, the cards are straight Hormuz, absolutely. But as we've sort of seen in Ukraine, the drone warfare and missile warfare, you don't need to have a military the size of America to be successful at it. What is crucial is, I'm sure, the targeting advice that Moscow is giving to Iran, because targeting places in Qatar and Kuwait and Saudi, even attacking an American aircraft carrier. Now, Iran doesn't have the capability to find those targets, so it's obviously getting a heck of a lot of help. But as you can see, although the Iranian military and navy and air force have been absolutely decimated and its key leadership killed, it still has the ability to attack countries in the Middle East and inflict some real severe pain on them.
Indeed. What is your instinct, both as an objective onlooker, but as a military man? Where do you sense this is likely to go, Hamish? I know it's a big question to try and answer, but what is your instinct telling you?
Well, I think we're very much on a precipice at the moment. I expect that Iran is more devastated and damaged than is apparent. So, which I suppose in a way is a good thing, and that tens of thousands of civilian casualties have not been caused. I think the actual mechanism and the military in Iran is severely denuded. But I think America has expended so much effort. Israel is obviously happy to keep on going, and hopefully we'll come to a position where we can get a just peace that satisfies the Middle East, but also make sure that Iran cannot develop a nuclear weapon or any other weapons of mass destruction. And it's really, I suppose, at the whim of President Trump now, what he really decides to do. What he's realized is that with oil above $100 a barrel, that is not going to help America get great again. And I'm sure that is, in the end, going to be the thing that stops the war.
Indeed, and if it continues in that direction, of course, there is, the huge global economic implications as well, as we've been reading today. A piece you wrote in the Telegraph, I noticed, the mullahs of Iran have British blood on their hands. Tell us a bit more about this, Hamish. Not an element of the narrative we hear enough about, frankly.
Well, I think people need reminding. We have ambiguous politicians in this country, and some on the soft left or the hard left, whatever you want to call it. Some of their views seem to be more aligned to the Iranian regime than actually our own. Let's not beat around the bush. Some of our green and left politicians who shout for equality, women's rights, gay rights, and all the rest of it, they are supporting a regime who absolutely think the opposite and do the opposite. And all I'm trying to say is to remind these people that Iran is evil. I did many tours in Iraq with the British Army and also with the Iraqi Peshmerga. And the Iranian proxies, they are responsible for the majority of the deaths of British servicemen in Iraq, positively. So I think people must not forget that. And it is absolutely in our best interests that the mullahs and the clerical autocracy in Iran is brought to book, because they are absolutely evil. And it really grips me when I see certain politicians in this country shouting in Westminster that we should be supporting these people, or certainly not, trying to have regime change. They just don't understand. And, I would like to take Zach Polensky to these sort of areas and show him what it's all about. And it's not the sort of utopia that he seems to espouse on every day.
Yeah, I'd like to be standing there while you were schooling Zach Polensky, frankly, Hamish. I think that would be an interesting one to observe. And as you say, that when Iraq was falling apart and these sort of splinter groups kind of formed, you're saying these Iranian-controlled militias were operating in Iraq, from Iran, but operating in Iraq with, in many respects, a specific desire to kill British soldiers.
Oh, entirely. And they were in cohorts with ISIS. I always say we owe great debt to the Iraqi Peshmerga, who I fought with, who actually were the boots on the ground who defeated ISIS and defeated a lot of these Iranian militias. And it might well be that the Iraqi Kurds and the Iranian Kurds, have a role to play in this. And they are all desperate to see Iran a much sort of safer and normalized place. And of course, there is a massive border with Iraqi Kurdistan and Iran as well. But let's not forget the evil that Hezbollah, Hamas and the Houthis and the other Iranian militias have done on the direct orders of the Ayatollah or whoever is now running the place.
Spot on. Hamish, great to have you on again. Nice to speak. Nice to see you. Hamish de Bretton Gordon, OBE, former British Army colonel, knows his way around the theatre of war and all the horrendous elements of it. His assessment there on where we're at. And interesting about the mullahs of Iran having blood on their hands of British soldiers. Thank you to him. Back to the big issue. We're talking about the cost of living crisis. Steve in Yorkshire says, in fact, Steve calls it the cosy living crisis. I think he's meant to say the cost of living. Cosy. I'd like to do a debate maybe on the a cosy living crisis. Maybe. What would that look like? People would be phoning up going, I've got so many slippers. I don't know what to do with them. These duvets, where are we going to put them all? Oh, the sofa's great. We can't wait to get another one at the weekend. What he says, anyway, was a cost of living, it's meant to say. Steve says, I remember the days when my annual insurance policy would actually go down in price if I hadn't made a claim that year. Like you say, these days, things just automatically go up just because it's not fair, says Steve. I swapped a car over for... It was more? It was round about the. It was a lesser car, if that's the right phrase. So it didn't have it wasn't as big. The engine was much smaller. It went from a 2 litre to a 1.4. Value was worth maybe slightly more because it was a little bit newer. But you'd think that the capabilities of the car would balance that out. And when I called up to get the quote or did it online, whatever it was. It was you swapped. It was sort of mid-term of the insurance policy. I thought it was going to go down, obviously, so I'm going to get a couple of £100 back of this. And it went up by about 350 quid. And I couldn't work this out. And I rang them and said, well, it's a slightly different model. Yeah, it's a different model. It's a lesser model. OK, it's not as powerful. It's not as big. I don't think statistically it's involved in more crashes or anything like that. All I'd done was I jerked the system, right? I went into the system and changed something. And by dint of changing something, that was enough for the system to go, yep, that's another reason why we put it up in price. It just goes up. Nothing goes down. Linda in Dorset. What have you got for us, Linda? Good afternoon to you.
Hi. It's about benefits claimants.
Yes.
I think that a lot of people who claim benefits actually do it online.
Okay.
And also people that get sick notes. So they should go in front of a panel where people can actually see what's going on and ask the right questions.
What if you have what if you have a mental health crisis, which seems to be the main reason, Linda, behind this huge increase, 600,000 in 18 months? Isn't the problem with that a bit like the old bad back thing? You can't really prove otherwise.
Well, yeah, this is a bit personal. My grandson. He moved from one part of the country to another about 5 years ago and got a flat. And he went to the doctors and said he had anxiety and depression. He couldn't go out the door without feeling sick, so he couldn't possibly work.
Right.
That was 5 years ago. He's been on permanent sick since and hasn't seen the doctor. And yet...
Wow.
And yet he goes to London twice a month to stay with his friends, and they go out all over London. So he's not that anxious, is he?
Well, I mean, that story, sadly, and I know it's always tricky when it's in your own family, but you're not alone in that. Linda, thank you very much indeed. 0344 499 1000. Martin says, I was a carpenter and general builder for pretty much most of my life, starting with my dad at the age of 11. I did an apprenticeship on £29.50 a week, had all of my own tools by the time I was 15, no cordless tools in those days. 18 years old, working on a site, self-employed by the age of 19, and grafted all my life. I got ill, home was repossessed, family broke up. Now I live in a pokey little flat, no garden. I'm on full benefits, haven't had a holiday in 8 years. If someone on benefits can afford a holiday, they're drug dealers. Well, firstly, Martin, I mean, doffing our caps all round for the brilliant backstory of what happened to so many people of that generation, of leaving school and starting out. It was never a question. Of course I'm going to work. Yeah, I'm going to make something of myself. I'm going to do really well, buy my own tools. What a great, little life plan, just hatching away by the year. And I'm sorry to hear that things did go pear-shaped for you. The way these things tend to work is you come out the other side again at some point. But you make a great point about those that are on benefits. Most people who are legitimately on a benefit could no more afford a holiday than, that they could suddenly decide that they're the king of Egypt or something. It's just a claim you couldn't make. So who are these people that are able to do the two? What is going on? I love Martin's assessment. They're drug dealers. Well, there is some absolute truth in that, by the way, no doubt about it. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just before we go back to the phones, lots of comment coming through. Don't go away, Maria. Don't go away, Martin. With you guys in a sec. Voice of Doom, the mystery voice, day 15. This is heading towards, I mean, our record is about 21 or 22 days or something like that, maybe 23. So here we are, day 15. It's doable, but it's thus far, no one has got it correct. So it's a mystery voice, but it's political. Remember, left wing, right wing, you know the drill. Very simple question. Who is this?
There's hardly any experience.
And again.
There's hardly any experience.
If you think you know who that is, 87222. And again.
There's hardly any experience.
And of course, we will tell you, but only if we get a winner. Only message, don't phone, 87222, if you can tell us who this is.
There's hardly any experience.
It's not Rory Stewart, it's not Rishi Sunak, and there's a few others that get guessed every single day, but it is somebody who's a politician. I can tell you that much. Maria in Gloucestershire. Maria, what have you got for us? Hello.
Oh, hi. Good
Hi.
afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You'll have to bear with me. I'm a bit slow.
That's all right.
I'm sorry, I'm a bit slow in the brain, I'm afraid. They're talking about this helping people on benefits with their money, their fuel allowance and things. Well, a couple of times I've sat with friends who've got kids and who have got, some of them have got disability allowance, like PIP or DLA. And one of them was saying to me the other day, oh, I don't know how I'm going to cope. I said, well, how much do you get then, Rick? You know, because, I mean, I know that you're on, you know, benefits and things. Oh, she said, I mean, it's about £3,000 a month.
£3,000 a month?
£3,000 a month. I nearly fell off my chair. I said, you are serious? She said, yeah. She said, by the time I get all my benefits, for you know, normal benefits, UC, whatever it is I get.
Yeah.
And then I get DLA and I get PIP for two of us in the house. Well, you're talking about probably, I think PIP, full PIP is about 700 or something like that. It's going up to £194 a week for a payment. So she's got 2 young kids on DLA. So you work that out. And she can't afford to buy food. And she's not the only one. I know another one who's very similar. And they get really good money. And they nearly all got kids with autism or, you know, ADHD, and or they've got mental health, so they're claiming for themselves. And
so this is someone who knows how to, you know, play the system to.
Well, I don't know whether it's playing the system, to be fair, because I do know that there are issues with the children, to be fair.
But she's got the full, like, Premier package, as it
Oh,
seems.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She doesn't need any help with anything. She doesn't.
Well, clearly
and
not.
I think it's disgusting because I've got friends who work hard and they really work a lot and they can't afford to pay their rent. They can't afford. I mean, one of them's paying £900 a month rent for a one-bedroom flat.
Jeez, yeah.
And he works all the time. He never stops.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's what most people have found themselves having to do. And even then getting, second jobs and, a little bit of extra work on the side, working longer days. I mean, I'm hearing this constantly.
Days, he's always tired. He's always ill.
Yep.
He can barely stand up because the jobs that he does, he's always on his feet all day long.
Wow.
Yeah, and then on top of that, he's paying somebody else. I think he's got maintenance to pay as well.
Right.
To somebody who's.
But he's
earning
also
about
paying. He's also paying for your other mate for 36,000 quid a year. So he's being absolutely rinsed. This poor fella. He's a great example of hard work. Britain does still exist, but you do sometimes wonder what the hell is it all about. Maria, thank you very much indeed for that. Keith in Wolverhampton, although currently in Gran Canaria, says just to let you know, I'm on my sun lounger. You are in my lug holes, 32 degrees, and applying suntan oil and topping up the ice in my vodka lemonade. Have a great day. I've got a feeling I'm going to call out. I'm calling Keith out. I don't think it's 32 degrees in Gran Canaria, only because I know somebody just come back from there and they said it was about 18 degrees. But it could be. You stand to be corrected on this stuff. Finn's checking. Finn says 17 degrees. Keith's telling us some whoppers. 17 degrees. That's warmer than it is here because it's flipping freezing at the moment. Martin is in Exeter. What have you got for us, Martin? Good afternoon to you.
Hi. So I think we're at the stage now where the benefit welfare bill is so huge that, as you said yourself, no political party can do anything about it because more people are claiming than are voting. So
that's very true.
The only logical explanation, the only logical solution is to take it out of political control, just as we've done with interest rates and MPs' pay, dare I say, so that each party can present their manifesto, do whatever they want to do, but the benefit is outside of the political sphere. There you go. Easy as that.
Yeah, I do wonder if there's something else, though, Martin, because, and this sounds a bit tinfoil hatty, but we're approaching a world of AI, and it's in its infancy right now, and it's already doing the most unbelievable things. I don't say that necessarily in a good way. I mean, it's impressive, but it means that the jobs market will have to sort of redefine itself. Do you think, a couple of people have mentioned this, we are going to have to get used to lots of people not working? So therefore, governments are sort of a bit relaxed about benefits Britain because it's, for whatever reason, not everybody because of illness, we're going to get used to living in a country where we have 25% of working population not working. So governments aren't chasing it up because to them it's like it's kind of a dry run for what's to come.
Yeah, I mean, I go the other way. I put AI in charge of benefits because at the end of the day, you just have a number of amount of money to spend, and you have an outnumber of amount of money of people who want it.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be a political thing. No government should be allowed to just borrow more and more and more and more to satisfy, because you have to admit that certain political parties are promoting that and encouraging it in order to get voted.
It's a good point, Martin. Love it. Thank you very much indeed, Martin in Exeter. Over to you on all of this. Is this government the enemy of working people? And all the associated subjects around the cost of living, what you can no longer afford, what you've noticed has gone through the roof almost out of nowhere. It can't all be down to an Iranian war. I think there's some people trousering a few quid because they know you expect it to go up. Lots to come, including the voice of doom. Who is this?
There's hardly any experience.
87222, if you think you know.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is the Afternoon Empire, 3 minutes after 3 o'clock. Welcome back to the home of common sense. We're talking about Rachel Reeves, we're talking about the Treasury, we're talking about tax hikes, energy bills, and goodness knows what else. The Chancellor has actually stated that energy bill relief will likely be restricted to benefit recipients. This is a bit of a wake-up call for everybody else who's thinking, what about my energy bill relief? Calling universal support, she said, was irresponsible and unaffordable, once again meaning that those earning will have to put up the cash. Is this government the enemy of working people? You do scratch your head on this one. Also this afternoon, as you've been hearing, new government guidance is set to advise English councils on improving street safety. It follows a survey where nearly 90% of women said they felt unsafe walking alone at night. This initiative is meant to focus on new innovations like putting street lights on. Really, that's where we're at. And more CCTV on busy roads. And the government is launching the NHS online virtual hospital system where specialists, consultants can remotely video call millions of patients for consultations and treatment. I keep saying this each hour, and we're going to talk about it in a moment with Lord Warner. I thought they already did a bit of this. Details to come, everything you need to know, all the breaking news right here on Talk 0344 499 1000. Lots to get through and an extraordinary amount of messages as well. There's loads to be said on all the subjects that we're talking about. But I do want to look at this. Wes Streeting is set to promise he will drain the swamp of NHS underperformance, which includes removing hospital bosses who are not meeting expectations.
Failure has been tolerated for too long. Staff know it, patients feel it, and I won't stand for it. We won't have succeeded in changing the NHS until we change it for the patients who are suffering the worst services in the country. That's why I'm announcing today a new intensive recovery programme. This will target the worst performing providers, sending in our best leaders, and where necessary, delivering the structural changes needed to get them back on track. No more turning a blind eye to failure, even if it means taking the most radical route of breaking up the trust.
The words of Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary. Let's speak with Lord Norman Warner, independent peer, former Health Minister. Norman, always good to get your view on these things. I say this respectfully to Wes Streeting. I feel I've heard sort of versions of that speech many times before. Is that fair?
Yeah, join the club. I mean, we've all heard it quite a lot. One of the problems is that if you keep changing the boss, but you've basically got the wrong design of your business model, you're not going to actually cure the underlying problem. It also can be quite expensive sacking people, because you pay out usually compensation or a pension or something, and you then got to pay the new gal or guy to do the job. So it's easy to say, it's more difficult to do.
Yes, I mean, all of these, you know, we want to get rid of waste, we want to cut inefficiency. I mean, who doesn't, right? Everybody wants to do that.
Yeah. And I think one of the things which Streeting overlooks entirely is what is the mood music in the NHS? Where do people come to get up in the morning and go to work? What do they expect? And do they expect another day of misery, or do they expect something uplifting? And that general mood, in my view, has changed quite a lot in the last 10 to 15 years. So you've got a disgruntled workforce in some places. So changing the chief executive, unless the new guy or gal can actually do something to lift that mood, is not going to do very much.
Going back to the days when you were a minister, everything, I mean, of course, the NHS is never free of... there's always something that comes across your desk to challenge you. Waiting lists are always there. They are shorter at times. But there was a period back then where it felt as if we kind of had this thing sort of more or less functioning. And I'm not trying to just be, you know, kind to Tony Blair and his government, but there was a sense that it wasn't discussed in quite the same disturbing terms as it is now.
Well, it wasn't, and I was part of that change. I mean, to be fair to everybody else, it did start with a big financial injection by Blair and Brown around about 2002, 2003. So it got off to a start. But I think at that point, what we did was ask much more of the NHS. Here you are, we've given you the money, now we want to see some performance. And we put in some systems like targets, like actually getting patients to have more choice so that they could actually walk away from the local hospital if it was underperforming and go somewhere else. And we actually started to mend the business model by taking elective surgery out and having more private challenge in the elective surgery area. So we were doing things which I think captured the public's imagination.
Yeah.
At the moment, they're all down in the dumps about it.
Yeah, this was the independent sector treatment centres. Have I got that just about right?
It was, word perfect.
Yeah, I remember this, and you know, people were having sort of knee operations, those kind of procedures, you know, very swiftly, and it cut the waiting list. That became a toxic word, of course, particularly in the Labour Party, among some who couldn't quite work out or get their head around the idea that the private sector might actually be able to help rather than hinder.
Well, it wasn't a smooth ride, shall I say, but I mean, we just kept on going. And the reason we kept on going was the patients liked it.
Yeah.
And I think we got rid of this myth that people wouldn't travel. I mean, some of the smarter elective surgery centres actually put their surgery centre near the exit to a motorway. So people could get in their car or with their relative and drive. So if you really have got a bad knee and you want it replaced, people are on the whole willing to actually go to a bit of trouble in their transport to get what they need to put them right.
On this other story, the government launching NHS Online, a sort of virtual hospital that will allow doctors and consultants to video call each other. I didn't think that was new in itself. My partner the other day was meant to have a meeting with a consultant. She'd had a procedure 6 months ago, went back for the update scans, and the booked update with a consultant was actually, well, it was going to be a telephone call, but same difference. And sadly, he never actually showed up, but that's another story. He's now gone on holiday for 3 weeks. But generally speaking, it's not entirely new to have phone consultations.
What's new, I think, is doing it to scale. I mean, it's been tried often on a limited basis. I first saw this being done in Hong Kong in 2004.
Wow.
So there's nothing very new about this. But the thing about it is you've got to have reliable technology.
Sure.
I mean, you've got to have the person at the other end of the camera, but you've got to have reliable technology. And the NHS's history on reliable technology is not a great one.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's actually difficult to do. And I suspect quite a lot of surgeons or consultants would be happy to do that because it would often save them wasted time. They can actually prepare the person for what's coming.
I was going to say, in the case of my partner, what she was, it would have been utterly ridiculous for her to drive to a hospital. I mean, she wasn't. We're not talking about the most serious of anything, but of course, any procedure is serious to the patient. It would have been ridiculous to drive to a hospital, sit in a waiting room for 2 hours, wait for the consult. I mean, it could have. It would have been. It makes so much more sense to do that either on a telephone or a Zoom call. That's a perfectly logical move. Not appropriate for everything, but for certain areas of treatment, it makes sense.
Well, surgeons in particular have been doing this in the past by actually conducting the operation by camera virtually, explaining to the local person what they need to do in some of these tricky operations. So this is nothing new, but as I say, it hasn't been done at scale so that you and I can come to see it as an everyday experience.
Yeah, true.
That we actually get a specialist at the end of the camera.
Is there still, I mean, the reliance on, I mean, you mentioned there, it sounds strange, surely every hospital, every consultant has got access to a Zoom call, and the terrifying answer is no, they haven't. And, you know, we hear of hospitals still using fax machines. We spoke to one guy not that long ago who was talking about having to write to another consultant, write a letter that had to be posted, even though the consultant was down the corridor from where he was practicing. And this kind of stuff is like, this is a nonsense, and no one seems to have got their head around it. And there's quite a lot of technology that is yet to manifest, it seems, in the NHS.
Yeah, I mean, it's now absurd, particularly given the state of the Royal Mail.
Yeah.
Actually booking your appointments through letters sent through the Royal Mail, second class.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to make sure people turn up, that is not the way to do it.
Indeed.
And so what we are seeing is the NHS just not moving with the times, not getting the technology in place. And I think it's as much an attitude problem as it is a money problem.
So you think it's more of a money problem when it comes to this issue?
Well, I think there's an investment to be made.
Yeah,
but you've also got to change attitudes.
Sure.
And my experience of giving patients more choice, for example, is a good example.
Yeah.
Where it required the doctors, the consultants, to make their appointments available so the patient could choose. And guess what? They started off with a bang, but the consultant's availability just started to disappear.
Yeah.
So you've got to make sure that there is someone at the end of the line who can actually deliver the goods in terms of a diagnosis.
You were a Labour minister, but you're an independent peer. What do you make of the current Health Secretary, Wes Streeting? We talked about him at the beginning. Is he the man to turn it around? And I appreciate that anyone in that position is like turning around an oil tanker, of course. Is he making all the right noises? Can this Labour government solve the crisis as many people see it in the NHS, Norman?
Well, he talks good talk, but whether he walks the good walk, I'm not convinced entirely. You can't improve the NHS by public announcements. You've got to get the attitude of the staff changed. They've got to be on your side. And I don't see this in the NHS. I see a lot of people now who've lost goodwill, when the NHS has lost goodwill because people aren't as committed to what they're doing. That's not true of everybody, and there are many committed people, but they work their conditioned hours, not the kind of going the extra mile that the NHS relied on for 60, 70 years.
Indeed. Norman, great to have you on. Nice to see you again. Thank you for your time. We will, of course, catch up with him again on these stories. He's Lord Norman Warner. He was a health minister in the Blair administration. Now sits an independent peer, pretty switched on to the realities of it. He's not partisan on this one. Wes Streeting talks a good talk, but will he walk the good walk? I mean, you don't envy anybody in that job, do you, as a health secretary? There's so many other moving parts to your job. You've got a pie chart with about 10 billion bits in it, and you've got to address them all to make the entirety work. Can he do it? What does it take? Back to your calls on the NHS. Trevor is down in London. What have you got for us, Trevor? Afternoon.
Hi, afternoon. What I'd like to say is, I mean, I heard Wes Streeting talking this morning about how good the NHS is starting to perk up. One thing I'd say is that the dental service in the UK is absolutely abysmal. I couldn't get a dental appointment for the last year. I ended up last week flying to Turkey and getting my teeth sorted last week, which cost me £3,500, including flights. The same work here would have cost me probably £7,000, maybe more.
Yeah.
But it angers me. The fact is that I'm ex-military. I've served my country. I've never been unemployed in my life, and yet and all, I can't get a dentist. but people coming in off the boats are free to get a dental treatment whenever they see fit. It really irritates me about this government.
And why would that not irritate somebody? I mean, you know, when people say, no, that's the wrong way to look at it. No, that's the right way to look at it. You're former military, and even if you weren't former, the idea that you're a taxpayer, if nothing else, and you can't get a dentist, but you could arrive in a rubber boat and get your gnashers looked at within about 3 hours.
But it just wasn't that. When I was in Turkey, the hotel that I stayed in, there was about 20 people also came across to get their treatment done.
Yeah.
Now, look at the amount of money that people are spending in other countries to get their medical to get their health sorted. Now, the amount of money that our country is missing out in revenue because people are just saying, I've had enough, I'm going elsewhere.
Did you go for turkey teeth, Trevor?
No, I didn't. No,
Are you sure about that? You're not got a nice old rack of shiny beauties beaming away.
I wish.
I bet some of them probably did. It is fascinating. Listen, Trevor, thank you very much indeed. You raise a great point. Dental care is so crucial given the implications of gum disease and when gum disease can turn into something else and the indicators of, you know, the vulnerability of other systems in your body which can be gained from just looking in your mouth, etc. I mean, really important part of medicine, but it's kind of sort of back burner territory, isn't it, when we talk about, let's do obviously oncology and heart disease, all of that stuff has got to be dealt with, but don't let anybody tell you your teeth aren't important, because they're absolutely flipping crucial. 0344 499 1000. Should we do the Voice of Doom now? Do you want to do it now, Finn? Let's find out if we've got a winner of the Voice of Doom. This is the voice we've been playing you.
There's hardly any experience.
There's hardly any experience. These are some of the guesses. Robert Jenrick, Ian Duncan Smith, Ed Balls, Oliver Dowden, Ed Miliband, Lisa Nanty, Roy Hattersley, all wrong. Alistair Stratham, that comes up all the time, wrong. John Whittingdale, no. Grant Shapps, no. Julian Smith, no. We have, however, got a winner. That winner came courtesy of James in... Where was James? I've lost the screen for a second there. Where was James? Worksop. James in Worksop. The answer was Simon Clarke. Now, Simon Clarke was a Conservative politician up until 2024, when obviously they all legged it. He served under Liz Truss, served under Boris Johnson. He was Chief Secretary of the Treasury. He was Secretary of the State of Levelling Up under Truss as well. And he does have the accolade of being Britain's second tallest MP. He's 6'7", which earned him the nickname Stilts at school. I mean, it's all right, isn't it? But all right, Stilts, is that the best you've got? 6'7". Who's the tallest? I can't remember now. It used to be Daniel Kawinski, didn't it? Who was 11'3", which is very tall indeed. I'm just making it up now. He was Daniel Kawinski was 6'9", but he's not an MP anymore, I don't think, is he? So maybe, but then again, neither is Simon Clarke. So that was the answer. Simon Clarke, former Conservative Secretary of State and Minister, was the right answer. We didn't get to record-breaking numbers, which means the Voice of Doom returns on Monday, because we're not here tomorrow or Friday. Off for a couple of days. Voice of Doom back, brand new, Monday, right here on Talk.
Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This comes from Brad in Bicester. We were talking about insurance, the kind of weird world of things like car insurance and how when it goes up and does it ever go down, and you've only got to make one. You can be involved in a crash that isn't your fault, but for some reason your insurance could still go up, and so could the insurance of any other car you might own, or possibly even any other car in the house. It's just a lunacy. The whole point, by the way, this is the racket of insurance that nobody really talks about, is that when you claim on an insurance, that's not like an optional extra. That's the entire purpose of the insurance. So you ring up and you go, yeah, can I claim on my insurance? They're like, what? Really? It's like, no, that's why I've got it. I've got it for that. I didn't just get it to give you some money. I got it in order to potentially make a claim. That was the whole purpose of this transaction between you and me. And yet you are penalised for doing the very thing you actually paid for, which is kind of a bit weird. Anyway, Brad in Bicester says, I bought a Mercedes on my insurance. I put 5,000 annual mileage. That was chancing it, but he gave it a go. After 6 months, I'd done 5,000, so I thought I'd go online and buy another 5,000, thinking, they're not Robux. I mean, you don't just buy a load of miles, do you? 5,000, thinking I'd have to pay an additional premium, but I got a £6 refund. Not complaining, but how does that work? Well, exactly, it's a classic example, isn't it? a classic example. Finn's just freaked out that I used the phrase Robux. What's he doing? Man your age. Yeah, you see, there's no logic to that, is there? So you asked for more mileage and got a refund on it. So it became cheaper to do it. Angie says, I know lots of people who claim separately. This is about benefits, supposedly living apart, but actually live together. The male is normally a drug dealer in the whole scenario. That keeps coming up. That's why they can afford holidays every month. The female will be getting benefits of a single mum while living with her partner. There's so many people monkeying around the system. I genuinely think that it's although once in a while you do see... it usually pops up in the Daily Mail, doesn't it? Somebody who'd crawled into a courtroom with a Zimmer frame and a wheelchair and some sort of medical hoist or pulley to get them in the dock because they were charged with swindling the system and out of disability benefit. And then they show them a video of them playing rugby at a fairly good level. And you think, yeah, you deserve to be collared, mate. But I think they're few and far between. I sense the system is so big that there's just not the personnel that could even begin the process of trying to find all the wrong-uns out there. Charlie is in East Sussex. What's going on, Charlie? Afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Ian.
Hello.
And, the sun's shining, and that's about all you can say at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Although it is cold. It is cold.
It's cold.
Look, Ian, we're talking about what Rachel Reeves is proposing, paying people on benefits.
Yep.
Electricity, but whatever bill it is, the energy bill. We've got ourselves into such a situation in the UK now where we can't get out of it. It's like a bucket with a hole in. We're filling it and filling it and filling it. Water's coming out. The problem that we've got now is we haven't got enough to fill that bucket. And the bucket has got, I'm sorry to use a bucket analogy, but that bucket, let's say that bucket is a group of people. Those people, and you're old enough like me to go back and remember the poll tax rights and things like that. As soon as you want to make fundamental changes to society, you get what I call the great unwashed.
Yeah.
They come out in droves because they're the people that are benefiting from it all. And we're in a situation now where we're getting to the point you've got people living longer, so we've got old age pensioners, you've got people on benefits now. So the people paying taxes are soon going to be in a minority and we just can't keep on like this. You know, I was all day yesterday, out and about, didn't get home till gone 7 o'clock at night. And I look at my contracted hours. I'm working far longer than my contracted hours. You've got the stress of what we're doing, and then you get a thing through from your energy company, and you just think, what on earth is it all about? But we can't. We're stuck. We're stuck in this downward spiral, and from my point of view, the only way it's going to change, and you had a call on earlier about depoliticizing it all. Yep. You can't do that. You can't do that because who do you give it to? And then you're giving power to an unelected body, aren't you?
But isn't that the reality of Reform UK is the obvious example, because according to polls they could form the next government. There, do you sense that they will come in for a bit of a reality check and a shock on this one?
Ian, I think anybody coming in, especially a new party, when you look at what we've got in government at the moment, and also in the last, let's go back to the end of John Major in the 90s. Everyone's had a bit of a shock about what's going on. The spiralling bill has, I think, anybody coming in, and although I feel reform is a step in the right direction, I believe that anybody coming into power, it's a poison chalice, whichever way you look at it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And it's got to be grabbed, but the problem is it's the will of the people as well. Oh no, we can't do that. We can't touch this. We can't touch that. Well, what the hell can we touch? Because we're all in a doom loop, aren't we?
Yeah. You're absolutely bang on. And you're right, anybody that tries or gives it even the slightest attempt at changing fundamentally or otherwise the system, and the poll tax rights is a great example. I mean, that wasn't the perfect change that Thatcher was proposing because it was too expensive, but the principle was sound and everybody lost their mind. And in the NHS in particular, in areas such as that, Charlie, you say you're going to change the colour of the door handles and people lose their mind.
Absolutely. So as much as we all need change in the UK, it's going to be so difficult. And honestly, our society really is up against it.
You're absolutely bang on. Charlie, thank you, mate, for that. Great call. You would be looking at, to do fundamental change. I mean, real seismic, changing the entire system of things. Would be a generational thing. It's not something that you could come in and go, well, in our first 2 years in government, we will do this. You'd be looking at something so big, so there would be a pain factor that some people would have to go through before you got anywhere near reaching your desired utopian outcome. It just couldn't happen without going through all manner of jip and hassle. And while you're going through it, the backbenchers start complaining, the rebels start to circle, they want to change the leader because they want a different direction, and nothing gets done. And it's funny, Alistair Campbell, not really a name we often use when trying to give examples of wisdom, did say recently that this country is ungovernable. But I think he was kind of onto something in a curious way, because there is that sense that everyone's playing to so many different galleries. You've got the social media gallery, you've got the mainstream media gallery, you've got your backbenchers, you've got those in the opposition parties. So you're almost attempting to please a little bit of everyone, not rock the boat too much, but you've got to be prepared to rock that boat. Thatcher rocked the boat on so many things, screwed up on the poll tax. Tony Blair rocked the boat with the systemic changes he made to the Labour model, the way that the entire system of what gets through and what doesn't works. That took time. Took time in opposition, took time when they came into government. We don't sort of have that time anymore. So, yeah, good luck to any party that gets in 2029 for the first time. And if it's reform, they're likely to be braver and bolder than anything that's gone before. But they are more than aware of this, by the way. And as they get closer to those kind of dates and discussions, I think they realise just how perilous that journey could be. But they are up for it. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. Daryl says, people who work full-time should get free and discounted deals, such as discounts on public transport, discounts on food, fuel, and other things, such as mobile phones, TV network discounts. This would encourage people to work and maybe take away the lazy incentive not to work. As it stands at the moment, if you work and pay tax, you get hammered for everything. If you're on benefits, you get all the best deals. Being an employed taxpayer puts you at the bottom of the pile in this country. Nowhere else in the world has this backward approach. Yeah, we've got to kind of reverse it. So what tends to happen is you think, oh yeah, all the people that don't work seem to be able to get these things for free because they've got no other way of functioning. So discount, incentivise those that pay tax. Are you a taxpayer? You know, when you get if you work in a certain place, you might get, like if you work for the NHS, you might get discount donuts at the bakery, that kind of thing. Paramedics, you walk in a paramedic's uniform and somebody will give you a free bag of chips or a generous chippy might. Should apply to all taxpayers. Free chips, that's the answer. I like that. I like that as at least a starting point for this one. Let's look at this. Things that definitely aren't free, and that's the cost of fixing your sick animal. Following a 2.5-year investigation into the 6.7 billion veterinary market, the UK's Competition and Markets Authority has acted on findings of poor competition and high prices, largely due to dominant chains. The CMA, that's the Competition and Markets Authority, has ordered a £21 cap on prescription fees and proposed a price comparison website. Let's speak to the Sun columnist Ross Clark on this. Afternoon to you, Ross. Everyone's got a whinge or two, haven't they, about the cost of making their dog or their cat better, more expensive than getting a human scan. Getting your dog's back legs x-rayed is an arm and literally a leg. So we're aware of this constant conversation. Is this new legislation or proposal likely to address it in an authentic manner?
Well, probably not. There's extraordinary disparity between the sort of fees that people are paying vets in Britain and those across the channel in Europe, other European countries. There was one woman who had a dog with a non-cancerous growth which needed removing. She was quoted £1,600 from a vet in Britain. Well, I'm not paying that, but she happened to be in Italy, I think it was, a few months later, and thought, well, I'll pop into a vet here and see what they would quote. And they did the job for the equivalent of £138.
Blimey.
There was a woman with a cat who the cat had some plaque on its teeth, and she was quoted £900 from a vet in London, and she took it to a vet in France, and it was sort of £30 or something. I mean, there are extraordinary differences in prices.
So £900 to clean a cat's teeth. I mean, I would do that for a living if I thought I could get that kind of money.
If it's probably danger money for cleaning a cat's teeth.
There is, but sensible gloves.
But yeah, I mean, theoretically, we have a free market in vet services. Theoretically, that should keep prices down, but for some reason it doesn't. And the Competition Markets Authority has been looking into this, asking why. And one of its explanations said that, about 2/3 of vets' practices are actually owned by 6 very large companies. It's not always very clear, though, that you go into a vet surgery, it's actually part of a bigger chain, and many pet owners weren't actually aware of this when they went to a thing. But yes, it is an extraordinary culture of overcharging. Of course, we're a nation of animal lovers, and the vets know that, and they will exploit us to the full. And,
indeed. And I remember reading something, I think, that fed into this. It was probably the beginning of this kind of investigation. They were talking about this half dozen big conglomerates that own it. I think there was some American kind of funded, real bigwig, full-on banking cartels that were owning this stuff and putting huge pressure on the different veterinary surgeries they owned, certainly in this country, to kind of try and side sell extra things. Your dog might need an antibiotic, didn't really need it, but suggest it anyway, because no one turns it down, do they? When the vet speaks, and the vet almost has more sort of messianic admiration than a human doctor.
Well, yes, it's emotional warfare, isn't it? There's the play on your, the idea your cat might peg it and your kids lose their playmate or something. And yes, they have you in a position, but there's also a problem. There's a lot of people getting to a vet surgery and they've no idea what the prices are, because over 40% of the vets practices, according to the CMA, don't even put their prices on the website. So by the time you get down to the vet surgery and find there's the exaggerated price that you're being asked to pay, it's too late. You've got your sick animal in a cage, and it's obviously quite a lot of effort to take it away again and then have to take it somewhere else a different day. So the CMA has asked the vets' practices to put their prices online more.
And even just sort of some unsavoury icing on the cake here, if your pet doesn't make it, sadly, and you have to have it cremated, even they're charging like £100 more than they need to. So it's even expensive. It's too expensive for your dog to die.
Yeah, well, the CMA sort of, that was his conclusion, was that the prices for cremating pets, they're £100 more a time than they should be if the market was working properly. I was fortunate when my cat pegged it. It was we just found it dead on the sofa one day, and I took out a spade and buried it, and we were Cat was saved, you know, a long drawn-out illness, and we were saved a very large bill. But
yes,
I'm so lucky.
What the cat would have wanted, I'd like to think, Ross. Listen, great to have you with us. Thank you, Ross Clark, columnist over there at The Sun. It's quite an extraordinary setup, isn't it? The whole veterinary thing. And if you talk... So let's take an independent vet who's not part of one of these big conglomerates. I've had this conversation with vets before, and it's a very similar conversation you have with dentists, because we were just talking about that a little earlier, weren't we? If you get your... I had a crown put on, this is years ago, on a tooth, and I had to then go to the place, what's called the imagery place, where they take a photograph of your gob so they know what size crown goes in or something like that. And then, you know, it then goes off to some fella who makes the crown. And I happened to mention this process on air. And I think it was the fella that was making my crown heard me talking about it, because I was trying to work out, because this thing was going to be about, the whole thing was going to be about $2,000 or something crazy like that. And I was trying to work out who makes the money. Is it the dentist make the money, the person that took the image, the person that makes the crown? Who's making all the money out of this? How can it possibly cost that much money? And so I went back to the dentist to have it fitted, and he said, oh, I hear you've been talking about this on the radio. I said, oh, did you hear it? He went, no. He said, but the bloke that makes the crown heard it. And he sort of essentially talked me off this ledge. He didn't quite plead poverty, but he said, yeah, but, you know, look around you, look at all this equipment that's around you. You know, it's like that costs 40,000 quid and that X-ray machine costs the outgoings are massive and the overheads are absolutely huge. And it sounds a lot of money, but actually I didn't walk away with 2,000 quid. I didn't even walk away with 500 quid or something of that nature. It's exactly the same conversation with a vet. They will say, yeah, but, you know, you've got to, you know your stuff with them. Well, you'd hope you're a flipping vet, mate. That's the whole point. I don't know why it costs. I don't know why to scan a dog's pelvis costs more than it does to scan a human pelvis. If I walked into a private healthcare place tomorrow, I could probably get my pelvis scanned for 250 quid. I don't know what it is. I bet you it's double that to have your dog's pelvis scanned. Why? Why would that be the case? Now, tell me that's not, to some degree, I wouldn't say a rip, but we did speak to a vet, didn't we, last time we talked about something like this? And she was of that school. I thought she went, no, it doesn't work out like that. Someone's getting the money. Who's getting all the money? And they're expensive, of course, because they've got you by the whatsits, because nobody wants their pet to be ill. Ian's in Bridgend. Back to the human cost of living crisis. Ian, good afternoon to you.
Hello, yeah.
Hiya.
I just heard you saying earlier you don't recall all those years ago that the cost of living crisis was such an issue of popular conversation.
Yeah. I mean, it was a problem, but it wasn't we didn't live our lives by it, because that was the only life everyone knew.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm a couple of years older than you. I just remember 1974. I think it got a number 3 in the American charts. It was only the low 20s of the British charts. Paul McCartney and Wings, Junior's Farm. The second verse in that goes along the lines, I took my bag into the grocery store, prices higher than the time before. Old man asked me, why is it more? It's a good tune. I don't know if you remember it, but...
I've now got to listen to that on the way home. I wasn't even aware of that song.
It's an excellent little rocker, that one.
Okay.
But, yeah, just to say, you know, there were two constants then as now. We'd had the, was it the 7-day war, was it? The previous year, Yom Kippur War, the previous year. And we had a Labour government then, and it continued on. You know, this was something like November 74, this little track came out. So we've got that to look forward to again with the same two constants, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, that's right. There's a war in the same region, and there's a Labour government.
The Labour government, yeah, there we are.
I wonder. Good work. Love it, Ian. Thank you very much indeed for that. We didn't dwell on the cost of living crisis. It wasn't called a cost of living crisis. People like my mum and dad, and I'm sure there's loads of people listening to this who think the same, and this is being a child of the 70s, and so growing up in that period, also in the 80s as well. My mum and dad didn't have any expectations that their position would ever change, really. They didn't think in that way, and that was a kind of proletariat working class ethos that this was your position, and you didn't really move from it. Now, there's a lot of criticisms you can make. There's a lot of criticisms I would make of that. You know, my dad was a painter and decorator, and I always think, why didn't he, like, take on another painter and kind of have it as a small and then another one? But he didn't want to go down that route. That wasn't his thing, and it wasn't how he felt comfortable. He liked working on his Todd, and sometimes he'd work with a gang of guys, obviously from other trades, but generally... So you didn't consider the position you were in was going to radically improve. This is what life was. It was a bit expensive. You didn't have loads of spare cash. You were generally happy. You could heat the house. You could stay nicely fed. So you could tick all those boxes, and that's fine. And the most important thing was the family. It's not a bad model. Everyone wasn't hankering after stuff. You didn't go on a computer and order things that you didn't really want, or too many things of the things you did actually want. You didn't do that. You didn't go and get a takeaway every night because you couldn't be asked to cook. You didn't do that. You didn't have inane conversations with thousands of people you don't know on social media that told you how rubbish things are. You just cracked on. And there is really something to be said about that, because whilst the working classes of that era didn't have very much, they did, curiously, have a security, the likes of which today's groups of people, families, can only dream about. And that's a bit weird, right? Had so much less, monumentally less. But interestingly, maybe less worries. How bizarre is that? 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A lot of response on the cost of living crisis and the cosy living crisis, which we raised inadvertently earlier on due to a typo in one of our messages. Philip says, sitting by a fire in the local pub with a good pint when it's snowing outside. Yeah. How often does that happen, though, when it's literally snowing? I went to a pub. The last time it snowed, I went to my local pub and I was, this is true, I was literally the only person in there. It was rubbish. But I take the point. Philip, thank you for that. Simon in Derby. Simon, what have you got for us? Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ian. Hi. It was just a quickie, and I was just wondering, saying to your researcher, that if the Labour movement or the Labour government is really, the paymasters are the Labour or the unions.
Yes.
Why aren't the union leaders like you and I would remember? Well, I would certainly remember Red Robbo from British Leyland, Arthur Scargill with the Commons, who would protect their members, who are the fee paying, they pay their dues. Well, milliwatts, they're busy putting people out of work by the thousands.
It's kind of bizarre, isn't it, that the unions would have, wouldn't have almost a more staunch view on this subject, for the very reason you've just talked about, people who don't work and could work. You'd think, but union leaders cross a couple of sort of different categories, don't they? Because they want to be, they're left wing, so they want to be always seen as perpetually sympathetic to anyone's position.
And if you take your discussion you had earlier about AI becoming more and more prevalent in our society, which it is, well, that means the unions are going to be finished because we won't need them.
No, absolutely. And there's not a lot said on that either. Is one of the reasons why quite a lot of union people were pro-Brexit, because you think, well, it would be the other way around because they're a bit left. But actually, many of them, of course, were because of the rights of British workers. So they can take it that far, but not any further, it seems.
Well, I just think the whole thing is sort of set for disaster. I mean, and maybe that's why Labour perhaps are taking the attitude that they are. I mean, I find it very strange that the people who are actually supporting them and what their foundation of the whole Labour movement was about was protecting the workers, but it doesn't seem to be about that at all.
Well, indeed, yeah, good point. Thank you very much indeed for that, Simon. There is that curious. There's some contradictions in that, isn't there? You know, the sort of Jeremy Corbyn being against nuclear, but simultaneously having to support those that work in that industry because, of course, there are workers and hard workers involved in that industry. Steve in Yorkshire says, great show on the cosy living crisis. I remember the days when my annual... that's the one that started it off, isn't it? The cosy living crisis, when your annual insurance only went up. Often went down, sorry, if you'd had an insurance with a company for a long time. Simon's in Norwich on dentists. Simon, what have you got for us?
Hi, Ian. My dentist that I went to in Norwich quoted me for two brand new caps, because the ones I've got have been in, I don't know, 30 years or so.
Yeah.
And I needed some deep root canal work done on one tooth.
Yeah.
And it was, off the top of my head, I think it was about 2,700. Anyway, fortunately enough, I do have a place in Spain, and somebody told me to go to the local dentist in the village where we are. So we popped down, saw her. Each cap was €400, so that was 800, and the deep root canal work, and I never felt a thing, was €200.
So all told, that's about 800 quid, yeah?
Yeah.
And you were quoted nearer £3,000.
Nearly £3,000, yeah.
Man alive! How is that? How could it be so different?
Well, I don't know, crazy. And one other quick thing: we've got two dogs.
Yep.
Little dachshunds. One of the big vet companies that we take them to, one of the poor little dogs needed some work on his teeth. He needed one out, and they said possibly 3, but we'll cap it at £3,000. So we said, okay, we'll go elsewhere. So we went to the local vets there again in our village in Spain.
Yeah.
And it was under €500.
Well, I thought you were going to say you went to the same dentist in Spain.
His little fella had 3 teeth out. He was in there for the whole day. They took his bloods, so he was okay to go under anaesthetic.
So they capped it. They said, "Well, cap it at $3,000 because they probably
$3,000,
thought that's probably where your insurance lies or something. I don't know." But then but you got it done for about £500. I mean, that's
€500. Yeah.
I mean, these are countries that have, they're kind of countries that have exactly the same kind of economies as us, right? I mean,
Well, I tell you what, their equipment is top notch.
I mean, you'd like to think our equipment's top notch, wouldn't you?
We're talking about not a massive place in Spain, a small little Spanish village.
Yeah.
And she had the whole caboodle. It was, well, yeah. I was really surprised.
So between the vet and the dentist in that village, they're doing all right, aren't they? I love it. That's a great call, Simon. Thank you very much indeed for that. What is it about this? Is it this country? You can apply it to transport as well, can't you? If you look at train tickets, if you get the wrong part of the day or the wrong, because it changes wildly. Because once in a while, like flights, you can luck in and get one of these amazing fly to Spain for about £22. Other times it's ludicrous. So there's all of that. And when you talk to people in France or Germany about their railways and how they function, there's none of this old guff. It all seems pretty straightforward, completely affordable, seems to run, if anything, slightly better than ours. It's not hard to be worse, I suppose, but it would be hard to be worse. What's the fundamental difference? There's a whole phone-in on this. I think we could willingly do a phone-in on stuff that you got abroad rather than here, because it was just so much cheaper. And this one from Kelvin, who says, "Afternoon, Ed Megawatt is scamming the country. He wants us to pay for his project. It's going to be his new business, taxpayers for his panels and turbines. Then he's going to run it as his business and charge us all for the energy generated by our own equipment. If taxpayers are paying for all of this equipment, it belongs to us, not him. And we should get free energy. Think of how much money he will make out of this with him out there without paying for any of it. He's a scammer. The only bill we should be paying would be a maintenance fee, no more than £100 or £200 a year," says Kelvin.
Any more of that message, or is there another chapter?
Well, it was a long old message.
Yes, wasn't it? Yeah, I've been in a minute. You've been reading the thing ever since I came in.
You should have. Well, I started when you got to the door.
Yeah, exactly. Don't read any more of Kelvin's messages. They're too long.
But he makes a good point. A lot of people think that Ed Miliband